Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is a pivotal moment for all of us, for Cedefop, for many of you who participated to this collective undertaking, I would say. As a testament of its importance, we are here together with the Cedefop director, Jürgen Siebel, who in a while after my overture will launch officially the first European survey on vocational teacher. You know, the purpose of the survey is to shine a spotlight on the driving force behind our education and training system, our teachers, our vocational teachers in particular. We don't need to be a teacher to understand the importance of this profession. We all were students just a few years ago, and in any case, I mean, we all, or parents or uncles of students, so we all know how much meaning being a teacher can give to own life for those who are in the profession, and crucially to the lives of our young people, of course. And also we will discuss about it how challenging and how frustrating sometimes their work can be. So today, I mean, we first of all, one point maybe that to mention is that in addition to the challenges faced by all teachers, in general, vocational teachers are expected to respond more flexibly to the changing labor market needs, to adjust their practices, to introduce new approaches to teaching, to learning, and therefore, I mean, through this survey, we would like to understand more how we can improve professional development and more generally, I mean, the overall working conditions of teachers in initial vocational training across Europe. Now, the fact that so many countries, I mean, I believe almost 90% of member states have committed themselves, and your presence today demonstrates the value of this initiative. By the way, we have a presence on 3 different dimensions, as you know. Today, we have the people here, the brave, here in the room, physically present. We have those, especially the other members of the stakeholders committee, of the stakeholders group, who are connected online with possibility of interaction. I trust that it will work well. And also we have the live stream on YouTube, and we like to think that many teachers across Europe are watching us. In any case, this is not a conference, it's a policy learning session. It's first of all the gathering of the members of the stakeholders group. So representatives and experts from the Ministry of Education, representatives from the Ministry of Labour, members of our strategic partners, the European Trade Union Committee for Education, the European Federation of Education Employers, and the other key stakeholders who are supporting us, the European Commission, the European Parliament, and other European agencies. I believe a colleague from ETF is here today. Eccola. So in the afternoon, we will set the scene. We will give a brief overview of our Cedefop work on teachers and trainers in vocational training. Of the survey, of course. We are honored to host the keynote speech by Professor Christopher Day. Thank you very much, Christopher. And that's a great opportunity for us because Professor Day will provide us with some essential academic lens to interpreting the data that will be collected through the survey. So looking forward to a lively and engaging discussion. Your engagement has been so important so far. It is even more important now that we are moving to action. From the pilot, I understand that we still have some coordination failure in some countries, so let's make this final push a collective success. With that, I'm pleased to give Jürgen the floor for the official launch of the European Vocational Training Teacher Survey.
Yes, thank you, Antonio, and good morning, dear colleagues, collaborators, friends. Welcome to Cedefop, also welcome to Thessaloniki, of course, and a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us online. It's an exciting occasion today as we are gathered here for our 4th Policy Learning Forum, during which we will also launch the European Vocational Teacher Survey, or EVTS. That's maybe easier, Antonio, to give EVTS. We're grateful to have you with us today at such a momentous occasion. The European Commission, EU agencies, ministries, social partners, vet providers, school leaders, teachers' organizations, and researchers. Your presence says something that is both simple and powerful. Europe's skills ambitions are intrinsically dependent on the skills and well-being of its teachers. We talk a lot about the green and digital transitions, on productivity, inclusion, but for such transitions to succeed in the workplace, they must first be imagined and brewed in classrooms, in workshops, and in training centers. As the EU moves towards its 2030 skills targets and works to boost long-term competitiveness, we face a hard truth. Teacher shortages, especially in vocational education and training, are undermining progress. The profession's attractiveness is under pressure. About 1 in 3 of today's teachers did not choose teaching as their first career, and just above 17% feel that their choice is being valued. In vet, teachers are often precariously employed, working under demanding conditions, with heavy workloads in crowded classrooms. They earn, on average, almost 11% less than other tertiary educated workers. Only 40% of them are actually satisfied with their pay levels. Yet we ask them to deliver on the digital and green transition, keep pace with the AI developments, and to ensure inclusive classrooms. But if we really want a skills-first Europe, we must first support the people who teach those skills. That is why the EVTS matters and why we launch it here today. For years, we have recognized the central role of teachers' continuing professional development, or CPD, but comparable EU-wide evidence on vet teachers' CPD is scarce. We hear about the barriers, like time, relevance, recognition, leadership support, lack of access to industry know-how. And we also somehow know what helps. Mentoring, peer learning, credible training opportunities, real links to the workplace. The EVTS, Europe's first major social survey dedicated to vet teachers, will help us move from anecdotes to evidence. So how will the EVTS achieve this? Well, in the coming months, it will randomly select and survey about 14,000 teachers in initial vet schools across Europe. Questions will focus on how teachers develop professionally, which type of training activity works best for them, where vet teachers' skills gaps lie, especially in relation to the digital and green transitions, and how they can best manage inclusive classrooms. The survey will focus on vet teachers' job satisfaction, working conditions, and career paths, and how these ultimately influence the attractiveness of the vet teaching profession. What will the EVTS deliver to you? Well, I start with comparability, so that we can all spot patterns on what works and what doesn't work in vet schools and all around Europe. And the second thing it will deliver is also a baseline, because with this we can measure and track the progress that is being made. And it will give us actionable intelligence so that ministries, agencies, vet providers and teachers' organizations can make targeted improvements. The EVTS is anchored in the EU policy framework. The Commission's ambition for a union of skills asked us to connect policy and investment so that skills can translate into opportunity and competitiveness. The Digital Education Action Plan, the European Education Area, ET 2030, and the Council recommendation on VET, they all call for national strategies to overcome teachers' digital, green and inclusive skills gaps. The EVTS is an integral new European source for skills intelligence that turns this ambition into reality. So while policy sets the what, the EVTS will help to deliver on the how, on the where, and most importantly, on the is it working. Let me highlight maybe 3 points in closing that summarize Cedefop's tremendous investment in the development of this pioneering survey over and above the significant financial commitments that we have made. First, cooperation and relevance. The EVTS has been developed building on extensive cooperation with relevant member states and the European Commission, and also the VET community, the social partners in education. And building such a wide EVTS stakeholder network has enabled us to design a survey that actually genuinely reflects VET teachers' working environments, balancing teaching, assessment, administration, and their own learning. Second, quality and comparability. As with all Cedefop skills and job surveys or surveys in general, we have ensured that rigorous sampling and statistical methods have been applied and extensive pre-testing has been carried out so that this survey meets the highest possible scientific standards. And finally, from data to action. We aim to embed results in European and national policy learning cycles, utilizing channels such as country reports and thematic deep dives, and working together with relevant stakeholders like you and the VET teaching community to turn evidence into practical actions. So what do I ask of you for these 2 days? Well, that's easy. Please engage with the survey, pressure test it with your national and sectoral lenses, share what works and what doesn't work. And if you found ways around the barriers to teachers' CPD, please tell us, share them with us and how it can be done. And please, final request, please commit to implementing anything the EVTS evidence points towards, be it specific measures or be it areas of improvement in your area of responsibility, so that teachers may feel the difference starting next term and not next decade. Thank you very much, and I wish you a successful forum.
Thank you, Jürgen, and a call for action. I know that you mean it because literally you supported this project since day one, literally. So I know that how you care for it. And a powerful call for action also require high-level policy commitment. And for this, we look at the European Commission. Anna Bankik, I believe, is head of unit at DG Employment, I believe is connected. And so, with pleasure, okay. Anna, good to see you. And so, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope that you can hear me.
We do.
Yes,
yeah,
great.
We can hear well.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody, dear colleagues, dear organizers, dear participants. It is really a pleasure for me to be at this moment with you, even though not in person. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Thessaloniki in person today, but I still have the pleasure to be part of what I think is really a very important step for the VET policy. So I would like to start by thanking and congratulating Cedefop for organizing this important event, and also for all the outstanding work that you have done to develop the survey. As Jürgen said as well, the fact that we have gathered today with such a broad group of educators, researchers, policymakers, social partners, it does really say one thing very clearly. Vocational teachers and trainers are finally taking the central place that they deserve in the European VET agenda. And you have seen it in the Union of Skills, you have seen it as well in the recently adopted Herning Declaration. I think for many years, much of the focus in the vocational education and training has rightly been on strengthening systems, on improving qualifications, securing funding, on modernizing infrastructure. All this is very important, but we must really not forget that teachers and trainers are the ones who bring it all to life. They are the key to turning policy into practice and turning ambition into impact. Across Europe, VET teachers and in-company trainers are really the tireless force behind the skills that power our economies and societies. They prepare young people for jobs that are essential for our daily lives, from electricians and mechanics to care assistants and IT technicians. They also accompany adults in upskilling journeys, helping them adapt to the green and digital transitions, often finding a new vocational. In some countries, as Jürgen mentioned as well, we do face an acute shortage of vocational teachers, especially in technical subjects and in dual learning. In other countries, we see growing challenges in attracting and retaining trainers with up-to-date labor market experience. The aging of workforce is accelerating this trend. So we need to be clear. If we want VET to be attractive, inclusive and high quality, we must invest in people who make that happen. That means recognizing that well-being and continuous professional development are not nice-to-haves, they are essential. It also means making the VET teaching profession a career of choice, a respected, supported path, a celebrated path. If we want learners to aspire to vocational excellence, we must show that those who teach them are role models on their own right. That is why today's launch of the survey is so important. For the first time, we will have a comprehensive, evidence-based, European-wide picture of the working lives, motivations, challenges, and aspirations of vocational teachers and trainers. We are taking the front line, and that really matters, because only by truly listening to those in the field, understanding their experience, their realities, can we craft policies that work. The findings of the survey will directly support Europe's wider priorities, addressing skills shortages, boosting our competitiveness, preparing for the green and digital transitions. This is about the Union of Skills. It is about Europe's future workforce, social fabric, and our economic resilience. And that is why also I'm particularly pleased to highlight that the European Commission is taking its part in all this as well. We are preparing an EU agenda for teachers and trainers to be launched next year. And with this agenda, we will aim to support member states to address teachers' shortages, especially also in STEM subjects and in VET, to improve the attractiveness, societal recognition and sustainability of teaching careers, including through better working conditions and clearer career progression, to strengthen initial and continuing professional development, including for early career teachers and trainers. Addressing these challenges are critical to reversing the decline in basic skills, especially among disadvantaged learners, and ensuring a high-quality teaching workforce. This agenda is an integral part of the Union of Skills, complements the Action Plan on Basic Skills as well as the STEM Action Plan, which all recognize that improving outcomes for learners depends on supporting and empowering the educators who teach them. And needless to say, we are working on a new EU VET strategy that we want to present next year. And this will also not be complete without taking fully into account the situation and challenges for those who make VET policy happen in practice, our teachers and trainers. For policy action, we need data, and the survey creates an opportunity to better understand each other, learn from national diversity, and build a European community of VET educators who support each other, inspire each other, and raise the bar together. And in that spirit, I invite you all, policymakers, teachers, trainers, researchers, employers, to engage with the survey results, to share your insights, and to help us shape the future agenda for VET educators in Europe. Thank you again, and again, big congratulations to Cedefop and to all involved in this landmark initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anna. This is a long-term undertaking, so your interest and support from the Commission mean a lot to us. Now, I mean, we have some key allies even in the European Parliament. Brigitte Vandenberg is a member of the European Parliament, is member of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs, and importantly, is co-chair of the new intergroup of the European Parliament on education, on the future of education and skills. The first ever intergroup on this topic. So I think we can turn our attention to the screen and yeah.
Hi, great people from Cedefop. So great that you are there to launch the survey for the teachers' vocational training. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there today, but instead I sent you this message from the Parliament. Did you know that in the Netherlands, almost 40% of the professionals that start working in VET leave their job already within 3 years? How can we make sure that this does not happen? We need information for that. And of course, we don't need them on a national level, we need them on a European level. And that's why I'm so happy that you are launching this survey to get the information that we need so that we together can work on increasing the quality of VET education, because of course, the quality of VET education stands with the quality of VET teachers. So I'm really happy that you are finding these statistics on a European level and that we together can follow up our mission on strengthening VET education in Europe. Good luck with the launch and let's work together on this mission. Bye.
Very nice. Very nice, really. And I mean, before handing over to probably the most popular person here in the room, my colleague Rena Psifidou, who is the driving force behind the survey. And I just would like to take a moment to thank all my colleagues. I cannot name everyone, but I mean the Cedefop team, all the experts, all the assistants of the Department for VET and Skills, also the research team from Variant, because it's a very complicated story. Their help is very, very important, and also all the colleagues across the organization. And so, with that, Rena, the floor is yours.
There is a conflicting priority between Cedefop expert and European Parliament. Dear colleagues, what a great pleasure to see so many familiar faces today in this room. Those of you, as Antonio said, the brave one who managed to reach the remote Thessaloniki. And what a pleasure also to have the chance to interact with all of you who are today online and you follow us on Teams and on live stream on YouTube. As Jürgen and Antonio said, it's a very, very important momentum. And of course, maybe I gave the impression that I'm popular, but I'm not alone at all on this. They say that behind a successful man, there is an exhausted woman. I will say that behind a successful survey, there are two very, very competent men, Kostas Pouliakas and Michalis Papazoglou, and a very smart woman who engaged them to support her in this really, really challenging project. I also want to thank Jürgen and Antonio, because it's true that from the very, very first moment they understood how challenging it is. They didn't get anything for granted, and they tried to make everything to be smooth in the sense that giving us lots of money and lots of responsibility also, and accompanying all our needs and understanding all the difficulties. But I don't want to start with our difficulties. I want to give focus today on the difficulties that teachers are facing. And I don't want to repeat what was already said, because it was said a lot. You heard a lot from all the opening speeches. What I want to say is that it doesn't happen always that all these diverse profiles that joined this event today, they're really gathered in this active way. And all these different stakeholders who are with us today, they prove that the teacher crisis is a global imperative, is really a global imperative. And the European status of teachers highlights a stark reality. And you already heard, You already heard that teachers are aging, and this poses many, many challenges in many countries. Just to tell you that 44%, they are older than me, so imagine. Many of them, they are reaching the retirement. It's not only that they are aging, it's also that young people are not really very keen in entering into this profession, and we're going to see in a while how many actually they are attracted to become teachers. We also face what we call the skill gap of teachers, the lack of adequately qualified teachers. And this is mainly in digital and green technologies. I can also see there, and managing inclusive learning environments. So promoting inclusion in vocational education and training. These are not skills and competencies that teachers may have for granted, and their initial education is not enough, and sometimes not even adequate to address all these challenges and new skill needs. And as I said before, not many young people are really attracted to become teachers. So we saw that in 12 member states, fewer than 2% of teenagers aspire to teach. This is really striving. Well, maybe because they do know the working conditions, and the working conditions of teachers are quite challenging. It is not only has to do with money, with salaries. It is true that they earn much less. They earn much less than other tertiary educated workers. They even in some countries they earn less than teachers who work in general schools. But it's not only that. It's school violence, it's bullying that also affects teachers. I think it was an UNESCO report that was highlighting that 1 in 2 teachers is victim of violence. Because we always talk about the violence between students, but it's also the environment and the unfriendly environment also for teachers. And the lack of resources in schools and so forth. So definitely the working conditions of teachers, they are quite challenging. And what is the result? Well, the teacher burnout. And EU is finally, I will say, on alert for teachers' well-being. Because as you also heard earlier, for quite a few years, it was the EU policies focusing on systems, but it was also highlighting a lot the competencies and the qualifications that teachers should have. I remember me reading so many EU policy documents about what teachers should do, should mentor, should guide, should psychologically support students, should promote green, digital, pink, black. And I was like, Mamma mia, I mean, these people will collapse. Well, they collapsed. And we face the teacher absenteeism and very important turnover. You heard from Brigitte that in the Netherlands in the first 3 years, many of them, they quit the job. Well, actually, Netherlands is a good example because in other European countries, they actually quit even from the very, very first year. And this leads, of course, together with all the other, the aging and so forth, to what we call a dramatic teacher shortages, And imagine that by 2030, Europe needs 4.8 million additional teachers. This is equal to the size of a European country, but I don't know which now. And as I said before, the teacher skill gap. No, it's not only that we lack teachers, but we also lack teachers with specific skills that we need in our vet schools. So a key step towards solving this situation is to recognize it. And we can see, as I said, in the image you see from Osnabrück to Herning, I would say from Copenhagen, at least, declaration to Herning for more than 2 decades, teachers are on the focus. And now more prominent than their qualifications and the demands that we have from them is their well-being. Now in all the latest Herning declaration, the well-being of teachers, which of course affects also to a great extent the well-being of learners, is on the focus of the EU policy. But it's not only on the EU policy. It's also that many member states, they put really as a priority the professional development of teachers and trainers. And you see that in the latest workshop that we gather the views of all VET stakeholders, they put this in their national plans as a priority, the VET teacher and trainer professional development, which comes right after the stakeholder cooperation and partnership, which in my understanding, they are very, very much linked together. So, most of you know what Cedefop is and what is our main mission. So we strive change, we want to inform policies, and we want to have evidence-based policies. So we do that through carrying out research. I had prepared 5-6 slides with different cover pages of the publications, but I limited myself to show you only one. We have been researching a lot about the changing role of teachers, their profiles, their entry requirements, how is the governance of their professional development, how other EU policies like the shift to learning outcomes, the impact, also the pedagogies and the professional development of teachers and so on. So there is a lot of evidence, and this evidence, and the latest one, which are the national briefs, just to showcase and to show you when they said that, yes, we do put teachers on our focus and on national priority, we can also see that in the latest national briefs that we developed, that we gather from countries, and we do see these trends. But please interpret this carefully, because these are emerging trends. That's not the norm. So we see a digital transformation of CPD. This can be interpreted in different ways. One way is that digital skills, for sure, are now integrated and prominent in the continuing professional development of teachers in all countries. In a few countries, they go some step further. And they also introduce platforms for teachers to self-assess their skills, like the Digicomp. They are linking results to certification systems. And they also, very few countries, they also pilot AI tools and also extending reality for immersive teacher training. So for all of them, we can say that they all have access to professional development for digital skills, and increasingly, few countries, they offer also the possibilities for AI and extended reality tools. Another important aspect is that sustainability is gaining ground. Since 2022 that we published a report, we've seen that it was very limited, the professional development that was offering on green skills and sustainability. Now in 2025, we see a great progress. So as green skills are transversally integrated into curricula, we also see that teachers are supported, but again, in few countries. Giving incentives and linking continued professional development to the career progression of teachers is another trend. So they give different ways to support teachers to be able to access, to have the possibility to attend different professional development activities. They formalize the support to novice teachers because they realize that in the first year they drop out from their job, so they try to support them in the very early stage. And somehow, I think the tendency in Europe is to link the initial education of teachers with their first years at work, with a continued professional development to become a continuum. I think that would be the vision. There is a continuum of professional development for teachers that is not fragmented, it's not in different phases of their lives, but it's a total continuous to support their work. We see stronger links of the professional development of teachers with the industry. What does this mean? This means that more and more teachers are going into the companies to be trained and have more the reality of the industry and the practical technical skills they need. But we also see with the reforms towards the dual system, we see opportunities for teachers and trainers to be trained together. And that's an emerging also trend. We see quality assurance, finally, on continuing professional development. So this becomes part of the accountability of the VET system. And in general, they are making efforts to make it more accessible and more practice-oriented, as I said before. So if that was like a general picture and that was what all countries would be doing in a great depth, I don't think it would be any need for us to be here today, and it wouldn't be any need for Cedefop to really launch this survey to support the professional development of teachers. But unfortunately, there are many persisting challenges for the professional development of teachers. Still, in the majority of cases, we see that there is a weak link of the professional development to salary supplement and to career progression. A few years ago, I think I've seen that the continuing professional development was mandatory in 19 countries, so they had to do it, but only in one that was linked to salary supplement. So, I mean, you can imagine. Barriers to access. Even when we did a feasibility study to see up to what extent this survey would have been possible to be launched today, most of the teachers in the pilot, they told us about the lack of funding, that they were not really having any financial support to be able to access to the professional development, and that it was conflicting with their teaching hours and other obligations. So there was not created really the space and the opportunity for them to become lifelong learners. Very, very interesting. We offer professional development to teachers, but we don't really involve them in the co-design of the provision of their professional development. And even more interesting, we don't even have very, very systematic skill analysis. What do they need? So most of the countries, they do ask their teachers, what are your skill needs? But this is not at national level, and this is not systematic. And when we go to the in-company trainers, we've seen that this happens only in 10 countries. So how do we offer? We just offer because things are changed, policies are changed, but not really based on their own needs. We also see that still the profession, there are some rigid entry requirements, and there are problems that are still not a strong validation system behind it to be able to validate prior and on-the-job informal learning for them to become teachers. We also see an emerging hybrid model. I don't know if you're familiar with that, teacher and trainer. So teachers can work both in schools and in companies, but this is emerging and there is no legislation, it's not formalized in the majority of countries. So we see efforts to make it more accessible, the profession, more attractive, but still there are, as I said, many persisting challenges. And the most important of all, there is no at all impact evaluation of the effectiveness of the professional development that it's offered to teachers. So we don't know if this is actually effective to change their teaching practices, to support them in their daily work, in the multiple roles that they have in the vet schools. So I will stay for a while in this slide. I believe it's more important than any other one that I show you, and my colleague Kostas Pouliakas comes to join me, thanks God. As I said before, it's a challenging project. It needs, as we need you from multiple profiles to be able to address the issues of teachers, we need to build also here a multi-profile and expertise team to be able to carry out this survey. So I will continue for a few more minutes and I will leave you in peace, just to say that all these persisting challenges made me knock the door of Kostas and say, okay, you are an economist, I am not, by definition. Help me, what can we do to actually address these important research gaps? There is no data. We've done lots of research to try to see if countries that are actually having surveys with teachers. We found that some countries, they do have some national surveys, others they have regional, others local. It was very sporadic, it was not systematic. We were looking into international surveys like TALIS, and we realized that they don't go into really depth to see the professional development of teachers in vocational education and training. And we were wondering why they do national surveys, why they don't do European, and why not international. Today I can confess to you that I totally understand them why they cannot do that. And here we are to join our efforts to try to look and see the possibility, hopefully, to be successful, to launch the European Vocational Teacher Survey officially today, to look into how what kind of actually professional development teachers in initial vocational schools carry out. They are formal, they are non-formal, informal, because we want to see at the end of the day which of these activities, if possible, are more effective than the others. We want to explore how the participation to the professional development varies across countries. And we want to see whether this participation varies because of different incentives, because the governance of the VET is built in a certain way that allows more participation and so forth. We want to get insights into what actually motivates teachers, especially if this is not linked to salary increases, what motivates them to attend professional development and what are the main barriers. As I said, the most important aspect that Kostas will be telling you about later is to measure the effectiveness, what at the end of the day makes professional development to be effective, and of course understand the mere needs of teachers. And we focus in this survey in 3 areas: in green, digital, and in inclusion, for obvious reasons. So, turning teacher voices into policy actions. I love this title that I put. We heard many times the teacher unions in many countries, they say that teachers don't have a say in the policy making. And this is what we now do. We invite the voices of 14,000 teachers in 23 member states in more than 680 schools to raise their voice and to be part of the policy making of their own job, of their own professional development. You may see the 23 countries in the map that participate to our survey, and tomorrow we have a whole session dedicated to go much more in depth and to understand how this survey has been developed, what is the method, the sampling strategy, how can we make this representative for all the participating countries, and so forth. So all this will happen tomorrow. Today, though, Kostas will explain in a while actually more what is the content of the survey, the questionnaire, and how this has been built in a way that will allow us, at the end of the day, as I said, to collect this data and assess the effectiveness of the professional development. And now another very, very important slide, because the one with Kostas and Michalis show the collaboration at Cedefop, and this shows the huge collaboration that we have built in order to actually conceive, design, and carry out this survey. This is all you. Is the European Vocational Teacher Survey, the governance, the stakeholder group. We have more than 100 members. We have Cedefop as the research team leading. We have the contracted research group Varian, who was with us today, and they're doing all the field work, and they support us greatly to carry out the survey. And we have a tripartite composition of ministries, depending on the governance of VET, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labour, Agriculture, Tourism, depending. They're all with us, and of course, the European social partners, ETUC and FEE, that have played a crucial role to help us, first of all, to compose this group, to conceive the survey, and so many other aspects. So you will see that later today there is a panel that talks about collaborative leadership. And actually, this is what we built here. We have tried to, as I said, from day one to the last day, to have all these actors that we need all together to be able to make this happen. So I'm sorry that you had to suffer with me all this time, and I will now give the floor to Kostas to say more exciting things, actually.
So good afternoon from me as well. My name is Konstantinos Pouliakas. I'm working at Cedefop. I'm a Cedefop expert specializing very much on carrying out Cedefop surveys. And this is a key point that I wanted to make, namely that in developing the European Vocational Teacher Survey, we haven't started from scratch. Since 2010, Cedefop has been building deep know-how and knowledge on trying to implement a range of different European surveys, for instance, the European Skills and Job Surveys, and more recently, the European Training and Learning Survey. So we've tried to take very much inspiration from all of this knowledge on what drives differential skill needs of adult workers, what type of factors influence the workplace learning. And on that basis, that has formed the basis of the theoretical underpinnings of the European Vocational Teacher Survey. Of course, before moving on to describing to you in essence the key theoretical constructs and show to you some examples of the actual questionnaire and the actual content that we are trying to measure with the survey, allow me to also firstly say that I do feel an immense sense of pride for being part of the survey. It is, even though we have carried out, as I mentioned, 3 major European surveys in the past 15 years, it is one of the most challenging, one of the most difficult surveys that Cedefop has had to implement. And of course, we still need to do a lot of work to ensure that it will become successful. And then even hopefully in the future, it will be a European product that we will be able to be replicating. And also, you know, as Rena said, pride also comes from the fact that to make this successful, it hasn't only been the responsibility of 1 or 2 Cedefop project managers. It's actually the amount of people and the amount of expertise that is being invested into developing this is quite remarkable. So moving on to the content, what are we trying to do? As I mentioned, we're starting from a theoretical construct where we're trying to understand what drives learning in general of individuals, but in particular of teachers, let alone teachers who are working in vocational education and training schools, which, as my dear colleague Rena mentioned, has been relatively absent from the available literature. So there have been many studies, many efforts to try to understand in general what is motivating teachers, what is motivating the continuing professional development. But the amount of literature which is specific on vocational education and training teachers has been relatively scarce. And the logic of our European Training and Learning Survey, and now what are we implementing in the EVTS, is that we use the 2 learning metaphors. Learning is not only something that we acquire by attending particular seminars, conferences, workshops. Learning is something that you also acquire by participating and by investing very much in your everyday work. Learning by doing, experimenting whilst you're carrying out your job tasks, collaborating with your peers, communicating with your peers. All of these are essential elements of what we typically call informal learning, but we are increasingly aware that they form the cornerstone of what we call skill development of individuals and, of course, of teachers. And we also realize that increasingly in our modern labor markets, we're asking from individuals to possess a heightened sense of self-regulation, the ability for themselves to adequately plan ahead their learning, to reflect on what they learn, to try to assess whether or not what they're learning is something that is being conducive to their future professional development. So all of these are concepts that we have been trying to integrate into the EVTS questionnaire. We also start on the basis that whereas a lot of European surveys have focused on training and learning participation, so we try to, for instance, assess to what extent people are following specific learning activities, such as attending seminars and courses and different conferences. There's a distinction between the learning activities that you participate in and the actual outcome of the learning. The effectiveness, if you want to call it, the quality, the extent to which the learning that you have participated in enhances your ability to actually afterwards implement your tasks in a better way, in a better manner, in a more proficient capacity. So this is the distinction that we make between learning activities, skill development, let alone competence development, being able to competently do your job. We also recognize that there is a difference between what we call proximal professional development, So the ability of individuals to try to improve themselves in a measured way by, for instance, interacting closely with your peers, from what you can call distance development, which is, for instance, the ability for you to have a long-term horizon, the ability to set particular learning goals that you will be able to stick to and follow into the future. So this logic is also what underpins the fact that we have been trying to include in the EVTS questionnaire different constructs where we are aiming to measure the goal orientation of VET teachers, the interdependence between how VET teachers are cooperating with each other, their self-efficacy, namely the extent to which teachers feel that they possess the capacity themselves to drive further their learning and to develop, the extent to which the working environment in which they are operating allows for a degree of innovation, a degree of trying to think of new ways on how to do their work. As I mentioned, even though a lot of literature, and tomorrow in the presentation that we're going to have in the morning, we will talk more specifically about the steps that we undertook to develop the questionnaire, but including a big literature review. The literature, even though it has been very much focused on teachers in general, there has been much less focusing on vocational education and training teachers. The one that has been focusing on VET teachers has been highlighting very clearly that one element of the equation that we need to pay very much attention to is what is typically called the boundaries between VET institutions and workplaces. So that's what differentiates, in a sense, VET teachers also from teachers in other schools, non-VET schools. Namely, the extent to which VET teachers possess a history of being involved in the particular professions that they are teaching, and also the extent to which VET teachers are being called to have a high degree of interaction with the workplace so that they can be continuously aware of what are the new developments in their profession, in the subject that they are teaching, what are new techniques, what are new equipment that are being used, so that they can then effectively communicate and transmit this knowledge to their students. So this is also a big part in the questionnaire. We've tried to include a lot of questions to try to see to what extent VET teachers are interacting with industry, with workplaces, to what extent they're trying to follow contemporary developments in their profession. Final major point to make is that at Cedefop, as part of all of the work that we've been doing on learning and on skill development, we tend to approach the issue not only in an individualistic perspective, namely that obviously individuals themselves have a lot of abilities themselves, a lot of motivation to learn themselves, but we always start on the basis that learning is, if you want to call it, a triptych. Personal factors, factors which have to do with the job that you're doing and the particular task that you're carrying out, and also then the wider workplace environment. We need to also take into account that whether or not individuals and teachers in particular want to learn depends very much on the contextual environment in their schools, and also of workers in their workplaces. And what do we mean by the contextual environment? The extent to which you are working in an environment that is providing to you adequate incentives and motivation to continue to learn and to continuously develop. So these can be intrinsic motives or intrinsic motives. In some countries, teachers are being tried to be incentivized using performance-related pay. In other countries, we're experimenting with different intrinsic type of motivational inducements. So we very much are taking inspiration from the motivational literature, self-determination theory, the enablers, ability, motivation, opportunities approach, to try to also include information in the survey to assess, are teachers working in environments which are providing to them opportunities to learn? Do they have adequate scope? Are they being challenged adequately to continuously learn and improve themselves? And all of this comes very much down to what is sometimes called a learning organization. Are VET teachers working in environments in schools which are learning organizations, which, for instance, there's a norm of learning, there is peer pressure to learn, there is an innovative environment that has been fostered, along with, of course, if in the school teachers are provided with the necessary affordances. Are they given adequate time? Are they given adequate leave to invest in their continuous professional development so as to overcome what tend to be more traditional barriers to the lack of CPD, the absence of time, family responsibilities, and so on and so forth? So this brings me to essentially what is the structure of the EVTS questionnaire. With big capital letters A, B, C, D are the different modules of the questionnaire. And in a sense, the questionnaire has been structured in a way where obviously you start from some screening and eligibility questions, where we try to ensure that what we are doing is we're approaching teachers who are working in initial vet schools or who are spending a given proportion of their time on teaching in vocational education and training institutions. This does not mean that they're only teaching vet subjects. They may be teaching vet and general subjects, but they're doing so within a vocational education and training institution. Then the survey moves on to collect information about the background of the individual, the experience that he has, the professional experience, his teaching experience, the years in which he's been a teacher. We try to get information about the extent to which they have had other type of professional roles. For instance, if they had been employed in other jobs, if they've been self-employed, if they've been in-company trainers. We try to understand aspects of their job, if they're in a permanent or temporary contract, given the fact that, as Rena mentioned, a big challenge also increasingly in the teaching profession is that more and more teachers are being employed in transitory capacities. We try to understand if teachers are being asked to carry out multiple jobs, if they are teaching privately along with teaching at their own school, but also if they're all doing other type of jobs, given the fact that teachers are typically identified as one of those occupations where there's a high incidence of multiple job holding. We have information on the personal drivers. So for instance, what type of learning motivation does the vet teacher have, and his learning orientation and his self-efficacy, as I mentioned before. So all of these are measured typically with an array of different questions, the aim of which is to try to use these questions then construct particular scales which approximate these different type of notions. The extent to which a worker feels confident enough to learn, the extent to which a vet teacher has adequate motivation to learn. We then move on to having questions which is the main block of the questionnaire. We move on to try to understand in depth what type of CPD activities did the vet teacher follow during the previous and the ongoing academic year in which we will carry out the survey. So in essence, we're focusing on the time reference of 2024 to 2025, where the survey is going to be ongoing. And we're asking questions on what type of CPD activities vet teachers have followed. Have they followed courses, seminars, conferences? Have they engaged in observation visits at other schools or in companies? We try to understand if these activities were done physically or using digital means, given the fact that we are aware that, especially after the COVID pandemic, more and more learning has been taking place in an online fashion. We try to distinguish on who is offering these type of activities. Are these activities being organized at the level of the school? Are they being organized by other organizations, given the fact that we know that in continuing professional development, in continuing learning, more and more and different institutions are actually assuming the role of providing skill development courses. So it's not only schools, it's also industries, it's also other type of organizations, civil society organizations. So we also want to try to understand, who is now being increasingly involved in the landscape of providing learning to vet teachers. A lot of questions subsequently about whether or not this learning has been mandatory, what is its duration? So for instance, what is the duration of the course that has taken the most time, that you have invested the most time in? So that can be used as a proxy on to what extent vet teachers have been adequately investing their efforts in CPD. The quality of this teaching, if it's being provided by instructors who are knowledgeable, who are of good quality, and the support that has been provided to vet teachers by their school in terms of, for instance, giving them adequate leave, covering part of the expenses of participating in this training. So along with this core module, we then move on to try to understand, in a sense, we call it the effectiveness of this learning. Even though it's a very challenging concept, and even though this survey is a cross-sectional survey, So we're asking people at a given snapshot in time. It's very difficult to try to assess the outcome of this learning in a way that would be the most robust. The best we can do is to try to ask the VET teachers not only what type of learning activities you participated, but to what extent do you think that you developed over the past year in many different aspects of their teaching life. And then the aspiration is that once we have the data, we're going to try to correlate the participation in the learning activities with the extent to which VET teachers believe that they have developed. And we also ask to what extent do VET teachers feel that they still need to develop? So not only if they feel that they developed in particular aspects of their profession, but to what extent they also still feel that they need to improve their skills in learning digital technologies, in following the green transition and the transition towards the need to use more environmentally sustainable materials and technologies. And of course, given the fact that teachers are increasingly being asked to assume a role of working together with students from many different cultural backgrounds, from many different linguistic backgrounds, we're giving a lot of emphasis on the inclusion aspect as well. Concluding the questionnaire are a lot of questions about the school environment. Are VET teachers working in schools where principals are in essence allowing for the teachers to innovate? Are they supporting teachers? Are they fostering a culture of exchange and peer learning? Organizational commitment, to what extent are these efforts being made, making teachers feel that they are part of the school and not only an individualistic unit within the school? Concluding, we have a lot of information also, sort of standard socio-demographic characteristics and information on the working conditions of students, of teachers. So for instance, how many hours are they working? Do they feel overwhelmed by the workload that they have? Are they being asked to take upon themselves many administrative tasks? To what extent are they feeling stress and burnout? And of course, we have information also on their job satisfaction and their earnings. So as you can see, there is a lot in there. We've tried to cover many different concepts that have been identified in the academic and research literature as being important drivers and correlates of teachers' professional development. And we have tried to do so in only a 30-minute questionnaire, in a questionnaire which, in a sense, has to be administered to 23 countries in many different languages. So this is where, in a sense, complementary challenges come in. It's not only an issue of, for instance, okay, we're going to take a very nice questionnaire from the Netherlands, which was focused on the CPD of teachers, and replicate it in the EVTS context. We could not do this. By default, it's not possible to do this when you're doing such a pan-European survey, and we have found this lesson, we have learned this lesson dearly by doing all of the previous Cedefop surveys that I had mentioned to you previously, by accumulating these 15 years of experience, which have essentially allowed us and trained us in how to implement a European-wide survey and what steps are necessary to undertake so that we can ensure that the quality of the survey that we develop eventually will be of very high scientific quality. And to do so, we do so by not only, for instance, taking inspiration from many different and complementary surveys, but by working together with a survey company such as Varian, which has a wide network of national VET experts who were advising us on many different national idiosyncrasies of the VET systems and of the terminology that is to be used, on trying to develop a particular glossary of the most challenging terms and translating these across the many different European languages so that we can ensure that when we mention a particular word in the questionnaire, it is mentioned in a way that will be understood comparably across VET teachers in all these 23 countries, and we will not have different understandings of the concepts. We try to formulate questions which are succinct, to the point, factual, so that we can avoid allowing for misinterpretations and differential interpretations between, as I mentioned, VET teachers from these many different countries. We implement a very strict translation protocol of having, for instance, 2 interpreters working together with adjudicators in each EU country so that they can iron out any linguistic differences. And once we developed the survey and we had, let's say, a draft questionnaire ready, we cognitively tested it. We went to 6 countries. We carried out 108 interviews of around 1 hour with vet teachers, sitting side by side with them or speaking to them over a video conference, administering the survey, talking to them, asking them, does this make sense for you? Is this something that happens in your everyday life? And we're also observing their facial expressions, how much discomfort potentially a particular question was causing to them, so that we could understand whether or not a particular question should stay in the questionnaire or be removed. After we went through this process, it brings us more or less to today, which is we've also piloted the questionnaire. So in each of the 23 countries which are aspiring to be part of the EVTS, we've carried out 30 interviews in each of these countries. We've now amassed a sample of around 650 vet teachers. The aspiration is to end up at having 700. And essentially we implemented the survey. We ran the survey to try to iron out not only any operational problems in the field and test the methodology and the sampling strategy, but as I said, to validate once again whether or not all of these questions and items and constructs that I mentioned to you before are working in the way that we initially envisaged that they will be working. And I can tell you that at least from the pilot survey that we have, there is hope that we have been doing a good job and things are working out in the desired way. So I will provide to you now in a couple of slides with some examples of some of the key questions and 1 or 2 slides just to show to you some evidence from the pilot, to show to you the potential of what seems to be coming out of the EVTS, and I will conclude. So, for instance, I mentioned to you that a core part of the survey is to try to understand the participation of vet teachers in different types of learning activities. So with this question, during this or the previous academic year, how often did you attend any of the following education and training activities organized by either the school where you're working or another organization other than your school? So we have a range of different questions, in essence, identifying the frequency with which vet teachers are participating in different types of CPD activities. A key question, in addition to understanding if they're participating in formal type of CPD training activities, is to what extent vet teachers are learning in an informal way. So it's not only an issue of attending seminars, workshop, conferences, but we have many different items trying to understand whether or not vet teachers are learning by experimenting with new methods and techniques at their work, whether or not they're reflecting on how to do their job better, and whether or not they're collaborating and communicating with other teachers or with their principal or with their students so that they can get feedback to improve their professional capacity. In addition to trying to understand if they're participating in these learning activities, we are asking them questions since the beginning of the previous academic year. To what extent have you developed professionally in particular aspects of your job and overall? What are these particular aspects of the job? Again, we try to identify key aspects of a teacher's, let alone a vet teacher's job. Of course, it's not possible to have a huge description of what constitutes a vet teacher's job. This is a small subset, but we've tried to have meta-constructs, if you want to call them. We've tried to approximate, in essence, what are the main aspects of a vet teacher's job. So, for instance, have you developed in understanding more the content that you are being asked to teach, learning new content about the subject you teach, deciding what teaching methods you're going to use, using digital technologies as part of your teaching, identifying vulnerable students, identifying students who have challenging type of behaviors like bullying or violence, exhibiting violence at school, collaborating with parents, with teachers, with principals. So in a sense, it's, again, along the pillars of what are you being asked to do, how are you being asked to do it, and whether or not you are engaging in communication and collaboration whilst you're doing your job. This is the logic underpinning this item, which is aiming to understand whether or not a vet teacher has been developing in his job, in his professional capacity. And as I mentioned, the survey has a lot of different items. For instance, one focusing on stress and burnout. To what extent are the following statements true? I have too much work. I have too many students in my class. I have too many administrative tasks. I lack recognition for the work that I'm doing. I receive an adequate salary for the work that I'm doing. I'm feeling emotionally drained by my job. 2 questions about the school and the school principal. Is your school principal asking for opinions and your suggestions? Are they allowing you to shape your job and to have adequate autonomy in your job? 2, the extent to which the worker has organizational commitment. Are you feeling proud about the school that you're working? Are you feeling yourself to be part of the school that you're working? And of course, we also have questions about attractiveness. Do you feel that your job is being valued? So, 2 last slides to conclude and to show to you in essence the potential and the promise of what may come out from the EVTS survey once and if we reach at the stage where we will have 23 countries, 14,000 vet teachers, which of course is a huge challenge in itself. We have been facing already challenges in managing to get these 600 to 700 vet teachers for the pilot. But as I said, by doing the pilot, it has already been showcasing to us the great potential, but also what we need to do more and better so that we can actually roll out the main survey on the field. So for instance, just from the pilot, from these 600 vet teachers, the survey, the sample is non-representative. It's not like what the EVTS will be. It's basically the initial 700 teachers which were approached and to which we carried out the survey. In terms of females, males, and gender balance, it's more or less what we expect it to be, but the sample at the moment is more skewed towards middle age to older age vet teachers. We're lacking a lot of young vet teachers. So, these statistics may change, but at the moment, from the sample, for instance, we're getting validation about the importance of the teacher shortage. 50% of the vet teachers in our sample said that they had to take during the past year additional tasks or responsibilities because there is not enough personnel in the school. 34% said that to a very great extent, they acknowledge that they need to further develop professionally in understanding what are the risks of using AI technologies in their job. A great proportion are basically acknowledging that they are already experimenting with using AI technologies in their teaching. A significant, and I would say the biggest share of vet teachers for this particular question acknowledge that they need to be significantly further trained and they need to engage in much more learning so that they can understand how to responsibly and ethically use AI in their classrooms. And of course, the issues of lack of attractiveness, only 13% are at the top when they agree that the salary that they receive is adequate for the work that they are doing. And so just to highlight that it's not only an issue of comparing what is the average salary of a teacher compared to the median in the country. It has to do on whether or not you feel that you're being adequately compensated for the effort that you're putting into your profession. And only 10% feel that vet teachers are being valued in their country. A last slide, which is basically showing moving away from just statistics to what type of analysis we will be able to do. Okay, once we get the microdata and once we engage in econometric statistical analysis, and once we also reach at the stage where, as Cedefop typically does, we give the data also to external academics and researchers to use the data and work with them and carry out in-depth research. This is a very first, for instance, analysis that I undertook, where I used the data, I tried to develop a scale of lack of vet teacher professional development. So the question is, what are the factors underpinning those vet teachers who basically said that they feel that they did not develop professionally in their job over the past year? And then correlate this with all of these different factors that I mentioned to you. And what the analysis is showing, at least from this initial sample of 650 vet teachers, is that those who said that they did not develop in the past year are less likely to be using digital technologies as part of their everyday job. They are less likely to have been investing in informal learning activities. So even if they attended formal training courses, the sample of vet teachers who basically said, I did not develop last year, are also that sample who were less likely to say that I tried to think of new ways to do my job, I tried to interact with my peers, I tried to communicate with different learning communities. So these two factors, along with the fact that you are working in a public and not in a privately owned school, are mostly driving the probability that a vet teacher said that they did not develop in the past year. But we also see that other factors are coming into play. They are in ill health, those people who are not developing, those teachers who are not developing. They don't have a lot of organizational commitment, so they're not feeling that they are being part of the school. They don't feel that they're accomplishing worthwhile things in their job. And also on the incentive side of things, these are also vet teachers who also said that they are unlikely to face consequences by not participating in CPD activities. So they're not that much afraid about losing their job. They're not that much afraid that their school principal will frown on them because they are not investing in continuing professional development. And in general, these are teachers who are not attending formal trainings, and even if they're attending formal trainings, they tend to be of lower quality. So looking at these results, I feel a sense of comfort. I think that the construct that we have been developing is on the right track, and I do feel that there may be a lot of promise in future research and analysis, which will basically start underpinning to us where should policy priorities lie, where should we give more emphasis when we are thinking about how to stimulate continuous professional development of vet teachers, moving away from the standard, the conventional rhetoric, which is we need to make more time for vet teachers, we need to alleviate their administrative tasks. You can see that there are many more other underlying factors and driving forces that one needs to take into account, which have to do with their school, which has to do with their principles, which has to do general with the motivational context that they're facing. Thanks very much for your attention, and I apologize if I overwhelmed you.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Kostas. Okay, I'm the data guy of the team. Hello to everyone. I'm Michael Papazoglou. I'm an expert here at Cedefop, but I consider still myself a newcomer, just 1.5 years, expert on quantitative research and data analysis. And what Kostas just said for me sounds like, wow. So I just want to try to engage you, but before doing so, I will just want to remind that tomorrow we have a dedicated session on the EVTS method. So in case you have any question on the survey, there's going to be plenty of time tomorrow to discuss all of them. But for now, what we wish to have are your insights on pressing issues, if I can put it like this, for teachers that we aim to address to our EVTS survey. So we have prepared this small slide. Yeah, it's a word cloud with 3 questions. So take your cell phones, both you here in the room, also online. I can see also on live stream, there is delay, but it's fine. First question, teacher shortage. What needs to change? It's a word cloud, so just type whatever you think. You can even, from your laptops, type on slide.com this code. I suppose, yeah, I can see it's everywhere. 1877382, or just scan. So we have some reactions. People who attend and are here in the room, Teams, live stream, said salaries, workload, yeah, recognition, working hours, safety. Someone puts the code of Slido, that's good. What else? Attractiveness, curricula, work-life balance, recognition becomes really significant. And salary and salaries, cool, workload. So these are, as I said, some of the pressing issues that we aim to address during our survey, with our survey. And we hope like in 2 years that we'll be here back in this room, hopefully, all of us. And we will be presenting the findings, try to do a comparison, what you believe, what we find, Rena, go. We can talk if you want.
Okay, thank you. I was not planning, but thanks for giving me this possibility.
You see many stuff.
It's striking. There's so many different factors. No, it's striking. It's also interesting how salaries became like first, like this is the high top issue.
Yeah, but
and
you
then
see,
recognition. You know,
huh?
the recognition. It's absolutely of the value of this profession, of the effort they make. We see salary and salaries. And the work-life balance, the workload.
And I can see here time for CPD.
Time for CPD, yeah, it's really crucial. I wanted to say that in case that everything goes really wrong with our survey and we don't manage to get this representative data, we can always show this work
When
cloud.
allows the cloud, yeah.
We can always
Still data, still data.
Sorry guys, we didn't make it, but we do have this work cloud and we're happy to collect your opinions, which are very representative from such a huge group of profiles. I would suggest that we go to the next one.
Okay, cool. There are 3 participants typing. Please go on, and that's it for now. We go to the next one. Well-being in schools. How can we support it? So, what do you believe? And then we will ask teachers. 14,000 teachers. We aim to have their replies. Let's hope we will do it. I strongly believe we will. Less workload, professional learning networks.
I will help you with the acronym.
I'm the data guy.
Children with special educational needs.
I'm the data guy only.
Yeah.
A lot of replies.
Interesting. Why they have the same color? Is the same value?
For now, yeah. If something gets more replies.
It's interesting how the well-being is connected with networking, with getting peer learning and support from the other teachers. It's very interesting that the well-being in schools is really supporting children with learning difficulties also. And imagine how much I can imagine a teacher who is not well prepared to teach students with learning difficulties, how alleviated he may feel when he is really supported in this area. Collaborative work, networking, as we said.
Yeah, mentoring. Okay. No. Thank you for all the replies.
Oh, I love this. Maximum 15 pupils in classroom. That's interesting. Yeah, we didn't talk we didn't say anything about the ratio of teacher-student, but it's unbelievable. With teacher shortages, classrooms become enormous. So this is true.
Okay.
More sport. That's interesting too.
I also need
the
to do
school
it.
management, I will stay for a few minutes. Leadership, school leadership, it's number one that may really affect positively or negatively the well-being in schools.
No social media.
Exactly, too.
Social engagement, work-life balance, again, supervision, sharing work, staff capacity, mentors, no phones.
Oh, I was in Gran Canaria a few weeks ago. I had a seminar with vet teachers there, and all of them they were mentioning that it's just impossible to teach students with their mobiles, and they were explaining how the legislation in Spain, and please you may correct me, it's different for general schools or vocational schools depending on the age also of the students, whether they can use mobiles or not, because mobiles can also be like pedagogical tools. But they were explaining how they strive. It was impossible for them with the media, the mobiles. And I think most of the European countries, they take now legislations that mobiles are not allowed at schools. That's, I think, de facto.
I'm against, I'm the other guy. You can see I have 2 laptops over here. So, well, okay. So let's move to the next one. Career development for teachers. How can we do better? What do you believe? Then Rena will go to ask teachers one by one. Maybe not, but we'll have a huge research team who will do so. Career guidance, quality assurance of training courses, remuneration, time for professional development. Again, you see, it's the second time in 3 questions that time for CPD comes. And it's really important. We need to highlight this. People believe that teachers need time. And thankfully, we have Kostas who designed some really nice questions on this. So, co-design CPD curricula, invest. And use Irena time and again time. Provide vouchers, job shadowing, mentoring, experimentation, 13 participants typing. Nice. Thank you all. I can see them in the room.
We have to say that also people who are on YouTube, they can do so, no? And we can collect as many people as possible.
That's true. I can see they can...
we can see definitely all the incentives. So lots of incentives to convince, to give the possibility to teachers to access to professional development. I like the one on career guidance. I'm looking for that again. Which makes me think if they mean also career guidance for teachers themselves, no? So what kind of opportunities they have for career progression and so forth within their own profession. This is really interesting.
I can just add to that in the survey we have information asking about whether or not the teachers have adequate information about different learning opportunities. So, it sort of moves towards that direction on trying to understand if there's an informational gap or not, if people are adequately informed about the opportunities.
Okay. Time and budget for CPD, predictable career paths. Okay, thank you all. You can keep voting. This small poll will still running behind, so you can even access it later to keep voting. I think we're a bit ahead of time, but as we love coffee breaks.
It's actually good because as we plan to take a family photo.
For sure.
Then we don't really take out of your time for coffee, but please go on, say your campaign.
But, no. Okay, so a bit of advertisement. Before you go, we go all for the family photo. Just outside of the room, and probably now on Teams, there are going to be two QR codes leading to our social media, to Cedefop social media on LinkedIn and X Twitter. For the launch of the survey for today's event, please feel free, scan, repost, share to your networks. We are glad you're here. We are happy you're here. And this
will launch the survey.
We launched the survey. We have a huge campaign for this survey. Tomorrow you're going to learn a lot about it. It's a TU at national level. We have lots of communication material, very attractive communication material to convince all teachers to raise their voice, to be part of the policy making. What we're liking is this, to have this collaborative leadership, to have effective policies. If we want excellent VET, we don't need more policies. We need excellent policies. And excellent policies are only with teachers on board. Happy coffee break.
Thank you all.
We can meet now for the family photo. I think on the left, maybe the photographer can guide us. We can follow. Okay, you follow.
Κοίτα την κάμερα. Από εδώ. Θες την κάμερα από εδώ, στον υπολογιστή μου. Βλέπει να μου πεις, μετακινώ την κάμερα, να φανεί ο καθηγητής. Α, εντάξει.
We arrange the practicalities, the room, etc. Okay. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the coffee break and had the opportunity to network. Hello and welcome from my side as well. My name is Vasilis Simeonidis. I'm an expert here at Cedefop with research experience on issues related to teacher education and teacher professional learning. I have the pleasure this afternoon to introduce you today's keynote speaker, Professor Christopher Day, who will be talking to us about creating an architecture for effective continuing professional development, a systems approach. A few words about Professor Day. Professor Day is the founding editor of Teachers and Teaching, Theory and Practice, and founder of the 25-strong country international successful school principalship project research network, which runs since 2001. He is Professor of Education in the School of Education, University of Nottingham, a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, and a Fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences. He has worked as a school teacher, lecturer, district schools advisor, and has published extensively in English and Chinese on teacher professionalism, continuing professional learning and development, teachers' work, lives and effectiveness, resilience and retention, successful school leadership in high-needs communities, and school-universities partnership. Please join me in welcoming Professor Day to the floor.
Thank you. First of all, just to assure you, is this okay? First of all, to assure you that I don't speak Chinese, and I don't write Chinese, and so my publications in Chinese may not be my publications because I don't understand the language, but I assume they are. I don't regard myself as an expert, as others are titled here, because I think that's because I'm a lifelong learner. And if you're a lifelong learner, it's rather contradictory to suggest that you're an expert. I know a little about this and a little about that, and I've accumulated knowledge over the years, and some of it is, I hope, useful, and some not. Just congratulations to the team in the previous presentation. I mean, the energy they put into this work that they're doing, the commitment which they bring to the work that they're doing, the recognition that the work that they're doing is... He wants me to sit down.
Yes, because we have the live stream, so the cameras are all... When you are seated, we can see you.
You see, you can't win with technology. It's impossible. It's impossible. In the end, you have to obey. Okay, I'll obey. All right. Sometimes, though, I can't help getting up. You know, it's very exciting. I find learning very exciting. I did not find learning very exciting when I was at school. In fact, I found it dull and alienating, mainly because many of the teachers who taught me were not really interested in me. And if we look at what's happening here in Cedefop, and the work that's going on so well represented before the break, in the session before the break, you can see that they actually recognize the complexity of the work that good teachers do. And I just like to start by emphasizing teachers are not all good teachers. Teachers are not always effective teachers. Effectiveness is defined in different ways, in different countries, in different cultures. Often now, across Europe and other countries dominated by what we call performativity agenda. In other words, the human capital, forgetting about the social capital, forgetting about ethics, if you like, the ethical capital, and forgetting about the emotional capital that children and young people need to have when they go into work if they're going to do a good job. It's not only well-being, defined well, we don't know how it's defined yet, but I'm sure Cedefop will by the time this wonderful survey is completed and analysed. And I do believe it is a wonderful survey which is completed and analysed. Somebody's giving me another sign. Is this what you want?
No, it's okay. Everything is fine.
It's already organised, Rena. It's already organised. Honestly, you can't even trust the leaders. You know, I mean, they have to micromanage, and micromanagement, of course. Oh, so here we are. There's the technology, the technicians, and the leaders, all of whom I'm criticising immediately as getting in the way of good teaching, good training, good skill development, and good other parts of development. In other words, creating a culture. And I think essentially what we see, from what I've heard today and previously, what essentially we're doing, I'll include myself here, what Cedefop is doing in its actions is enhancing a culture of curiosity among policy makers, I think, and doing a good job at that. It's also inevitably making what is already a complex situation in terms of professional learning and development more complex, because now we have to consider competence and capability, the impact of continuing professional development, and the challenges of change leadership. So I'm suggesting that we have to look at all of those parts in a very simple way. I'm only a researcher, so I can give you a simple, really, take or perspective on this. And what I'm trying to do now is to engage you in what Kahneman calls slow thinking. Anybody know the term? Some people are nodding, they know the term slow thinking. What Cedefop is engaged in is fast thinking, relatively speaking, because they have an agenda to fulfill, and it's not working again. So I'd like to go to the next slide, please. If not, I have it written down. Ah, good. Okay, can I just do that? No. Okay. Current aspirations, all right. So some of the current aspirations about which we've heard, this is just to confirm what Cedefop is doing, are, well, common indicators, multiple aspirations. Look at that list there. We've had a lot of lists already today. Here's another list we've got to do. How can we make sense of that list in relation to answering the so what question? And the so what question relates to, we're doing a lot of things in continuing professional development. Some of them result in professional learning communities. Some of them result in no professional learning communities and so on. We're doing a lot of things. Can we classify these things into groups? I hope so. Can we avoid what I think Cedefop is recognised, problems of fragmentation? And I'm guessing that all of you in this room are experiencing, have experienced, and will continue for a while to experience problems of fragmentation and perils and costs of fragmented service provision, career staff lacking access to profession. You've said it all. You said it before the break. So is the job of policy to decrease fragmentation and to increase integration and coherence? Well, it depends how you define policy. Does policy actually change anything? Well, there was a book written some time ago, not that long ago, called So Much Reform, So Little Change. So at this level, we're thinking excitedly about policy reform. And we're listening, for a change, to the voices of many teachers in many countries. That's complex enough as it is. That's what we're doing here. But does that mean we want coherence across every country? Coherence of professional learning development opportunities across every country? Will it be the same? No. Why won't it be the same? Because we have different country, in country, and within country, and between country, different cultures. Yeah? We come from different educational histories. We can, of course, talk about the educational history of professional learning and development, but that would be to avoid the question of context. So context is important if we're ever going to discuss continuing professional development. You want better policy integration. You want user-given guidance. This is part of the reason for the wonderful survey. You also want towards an outcomes-first focus. But how are we defining outcomes? Well, it's been defined in several ways already today. Well-being is an outcome. Happiness is an outcome. Retention is an outcome. No. Are they worthwhile outcomes is the question. Is the physical retention of a teacher necessarily a good retention of a teacher? No. Thank you, the person over there. Wonderful. It is not. We're looking for what I might call quality retention. And that's a bigger question than retention. Even in the situation where we're 4.8 million teachers short in Europe, according to Renner. Incidentally, there's a surfeit of teachers in China and in the Southeast Asia. There's no shortage of teachers. They've trained too many already. So what difference does that make? Well, it means there are more teachers in China looking for jobs in Europe, we hope. And development of national quality frameworks is important. For me, in the 20 minutes left that I have of this short presentation, I want to distinguish between, I want to create, if I can, a mindset. I'd like to influence you in terms of your mindset. Much of what has been said today relates to competence and the development of competences. Skills, 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 skills. All right, there are conditions around skills, of course. But what about the capability agenda? Competence we know all about. Capability locates human beings at the centre of a development discourse. Now, you've begun to do that with the survey. You're drawing in the human beings. But what are you going to do with that? And are you drawing them in enough? It acknowledges, it acknowledges the human capital approach, the competency approach, the instrumental approach, but it doesn't really tackle the other essential purposes of education. Human capital is not enough. And I think this needs to relate to motivation, commitment, resilience, and retention a lot more. When we talk about work-life balance, should incidentally, according to much research, be work-life management, because balance means a different thing over here to my left and a different thing over here to my right. Balance is an individual, even an organizational issue. So management is how you manage it. Same like workload. Many teachers stay in teaching because they can manage their workload, even though sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's wonderful because they see something change. And missing from much of the debate on continuing professional development for vet teachers is the issue of change. I haven't heard it mentioned very often here, and there's only so much you can do as a policymaker, but if you have change in your mind as, if you like, the end product, change and sustained change for better education, that's more interesting than simply change as an event. And change is a big, big, big agenda and complicated. And change in organizations, we know from research, will depend largely not on the individual, but on the way in which the culture has been established by the principal of the school, maybe the senior leadership of the school. So if we say that, does that mean we should spend more time in this debate working on understanding good, effective, successful leadership of organisations? Most of the people in your countries, most of the VET teachers will work in organisations with leaders. And yet, not too much yet attention being given to the role of leaders. I'll try to say a little bit more about that. So the provision of resources in itself, about which we've heard a lot, may not help people to develop without a parallel focus on human development. What about teaching as emotional work? Or is it emotional labour? The work is the positive, the labour is the less positive. What about looking at that question and asking, indeed, maybe asking that question? So, the policy perspective. The capability approach, the one I'm putting forward to you, this particular talk, evaluates policies according to their impact on people's capabilities. Capabilities are more than skills. They do involve what you've been talking about, motivation, the capability to draw on resilience, for example, the capability to have an emotional understanding of a problem with child or children or young people in the classroom, even of the trainers. Incidentally, I was saying just before we had the break, short one-stop presentations to a passive audience, well known as being the least effective means of establishing change. They have to happen for quantitative reasons, but not if they dominate. Okay, now, you don't have to spend much time on this. I won't have much time, but I just want to highlight the instrumental market values of human capital paradigm as against the instrumental and intrinsic market and non-market values. In other words, if you take the capability approach, education is a cultural experience. Development includes human capital, but human capabilities. Autonomy might be one of them. The ability to make wise decisions in complex settings might be another, and so on. Those aren't skills, they're capabilities. I wish I could spend longer just talking about this. And so we come to the word agency. It's a very popular word recently, made popular in research for a long time, but now popular in policy circles. That is the kind of policy circles you all work in. The ability to pursue goals that one values. Not just to value what you can measure, but to measure what you can value. Is a good, maybe an oversimplification. So agency and well-being are therefore deeply connected. And so we move to the third part of this six-part talk. And how long do I have? 15 minutes? Yes. Good, excellent. Fine. The design and impact of continuing learning and development. Continuing is different from continuous. I know still in some policy documents we have continuous, you do not. Thank goodness for that. But where people mention continuous, does nobody have a rest? Does nobody have a break? Does nobody switch off for well-being, if not other needs? So continuing is great because it allows people to say, I'm in now, I'm out then. And still you're involved in continuing learning. And there's learning in different environments. So the individual learning, the communities within the organisation and between organisations. And I'm wondering if you as policymakers think of professional learning and development in those ways. Well, we want to provide for this for the individual, we want to provide that for one oriented towards the organisational needs and another the inter-organisational needs. Really, really important. Now, I'm hoping you're thinking at the moment, as I'm speaking, yes, we know all that. I'm hoping so, because they're pretty obvious and much research will support that view. But how do you build it in to policy frameworks? Do you build it into policy frameworks? Or is it simply having more of what teachers say they want? Wordles are not a good way of analysing. I'm sorry to say this, but Wordles are not a good way or reliable way of analysing data, although they're very attractive to see. So, the questions for policymakers. Why is continuing learning and development necessary? Because we don't always learn from our learning. Because we continue to make mistakes. Because we don't always get from, I think it's okay, to the wisdom of saying it's not okay. Yeah? Because we don't always learn in a linear way. Depends on the stage of career, your phase of career you're in. Depends upon the organisation you're working in. And depends on personal matters too. Yeah? People with busy lives, with busy families, many people don't really engage in learning very well because they don't have the energy. It's not because they don't want to. So how does policy take account of that? Narrow or expansive purposes, I'll come to that. What does it look like in practice? I'll come to that. And what does research report about features and impact? I will come to that. Problem with formal learning, you see I'm changing my vocabulary to intervention, learning as intervention. Later on, I'll say learning is also intervention which disrupts. Disruption is a very interesting word. If your current norms and values, sometimes they're supported, but if they're not disrupted by the experience that your teachers have when they're with a trainer or when they're with a mentor or whatever it may be, that's not probably going to be sustained. Because professional learning and development, mainly temporary, yeah, we're in and out. Even if you can have a workshop or a series of seminars, it's still temporary. It's still not permanent. So we have to somehow find a way of ensuring that our learning is being sustained. And a couple of phrases, communities of practice and professional learning communities, are two ways of going about that. But anyone who knows anything from research in those two areas knows that they are aims in view, that professional learning communities usually don't include everybody, and that communities of practice don't include everybody. And so it's wonderful to have them, but they themselves are limited. And in fact, if you think about it, professional learning and development is limited. Yeah? How often have you, if you think about your own positionality, your own positions in this room, how often have you changed the way you think about learning? I'm not talking about other people's, I'm talking about your learning. And so policymakers need to learn, as indeed we've seen demonstrated today already. Sporadic, variable quality, you've already said that. They don't always align with individual or organisational-wide needs. And often they're narrow. If it's just competencies and not capabilities, they're narrow rather than expansively focused. And the problems of sustaining them. Policies change. Why aren't policies sustained? Is it because they're no longer relevant after a year or 2 years? If that's the reason, okay. If you have evidence that there's been very little impact in terms of individual teacher, even organisational change, then policies, I suppose, would need to change. But we're in a situation where dynamic, patchier routes and shorter job tenures exist. So always there's a tension. I want to introduce this word, tension. Learning is about learning to manage tensions in existing knowledge and new knowledge, between existing knowledge and new knowledge, or even within your own organisation, or even according to your depth of reflection, according to your self-efficacy, if that's the word you want to use, according to your professional identity. Very difficult to change professional identity, particularly as you grow more experienced, and so on. So lifelong guidance is pivotal. It improves people's access to career information, etc., etc., etc. So lifelong is important. Continuing is important, sometimes occasional. A former colleague of my own said, why do people have, he was talking about teachers, why do teachers have to have an appraisal every year? Do all teachers need an appraisal every year? And he suggested maybe they don't. Maybe some years teachers don't need to be appraised at all because they're happy, their well-being is good, their results are good, they're working well with their classes, they have good relationships with parents and others in the local community and so on. Nevertheless, we have to face new, patchier, sporadic routes for learning. And incidentally, money is short. We're already hearing that again this year, not for the first time. Now, this is a TALIS, the result of a TALIS. So that's teachers' perceptions, really, of some of their learning and development experiences and how they impacted upon them. And you'll notice from that individual and collaborative research on your left, you'll see that the participation is relatively low, but you'll see that the impact, according to teachers, is relatively high. And so you can look across this range of, it's not representative of everything, but you can look across this range of learning opportunities for teachers, and you can see what impacts and what does not. And courses and workshops, well, they're good, they impact. Networks, not so much opportunity, qualifications and so on. Do you take account of that kind of information in your design of a capability, if you like, approach to learning and development? Do you take account of this? 2009, it's not new research, but it still is relevant. It's less effective, according to Linda Darling-Hammond and her colleague, if it relies on a one-shot workshop model. Come on, especially if it's after school or after college when you're already tired. What do you think people are going to learn, even if it's mandatory? Well, it focuses on training teachers, this is for teachers, in new techniques and behaviours, you might say only, not related to teachers' specific context and curriculum, is episodic and fragmented, expects teachers to make changes in isolation. We're back to the leadership culture of the school. Teachers cannot, individuals find it difficult to make changes without the support of the leadership culture, a learning culture, if you like, in the school. And then does not provide sustained teaching learning opportunities over multiple days and weeks. School-university partnerships, school-district partnerships are a very good example where they have people who are capable of sustained learning and development. They're more likely to be effective when they're perceived by teachers as, and you can see relevance, organised by people who understand and care. I wonder if all leaders in the school are people who are seen as people who understand and care. Whether all learning experiences are provided in forms and at times that are convenient to the teachers themselves and so on. You can read through that yourself. But the last one is very important in relation to the session we had before tea. Enhancing their positive sense of efficacy, commitment, resilience and professional identity. I don't see many professional learning development experiences being designed for that last one, specifically for that last one, or elements of that last one. And yet we say resilience, or the capacity for resilience, is important. Okay, so there's evidence of support, development, encourage and promote. And now I have 7 minutes left. Challenges. Existing cultures. This is to hopefully to reinforce. Deep learning can't be hurried. Slow thinking, by its nature, can't be hurried. When was the last time you deliberately engaged as policymakers in slow thinking? Not every day, not every week, of course, but is that a part of your job? To become wise decision makers, wise in your provision, to think slowly and not quickly, all the time, when the environment says we need it by tomorrow, and so on. stakeholder engagement to reinforce what's been said earlier, but more of it is important. Konstantinos and I were talking at the break time, and we were talking about the great survey that's been designed. And I asked the question, well, so what? And he agreed, this question, so what? The teachers say is important, but so what difference does it make? And so it's important that that survey, I trust, will be complemented by purposive case studies, qualitative case studies, so we can see not just what happens and what doesn't happen, but we can see how, and we can see when, and we can see why, in terms of different contexts, organisational context. Has to happen. Well, you can see again structures, no time to focus on all of this, but you can see that the support for teacher agency through the organisational cultures and structures will likely affect teachers' willingness and capacities for change. And there's been no talk of teacher willingness for change either. Yeah? Teachers don't just need, it's not a technical issue. Teachers don't need to, aren't able just to change, but they have to be willing to change. And if you know teachers, and if you talk to teachers, you'll know that the time available for them to have the energy to engage in that is highly, highly limited. It doesn't matter what country, what school. The limitations are severe and becoming more severe. Now teachers are responsible formally for student well-being, for example. Now teachers have more responsibilities for liaising with the community, the local community. Now teachers have more responsibilities for differentiating between SEN children and pupils and others. Now teachers have responsibility for gender studies in some cases and so on. That was not the case 30 years ago. Moreover, post-COVID, teachers now have to worry about engaging students, because students came back having experienced non-engagement, and the energy that requires for teachers. Policy development needs still to account for that. There is still a broad gap between those who achieve in the performativity world and those who do not achieve, and the association between those who have special educational needs and coming from disadvantaged homes and those who do not. This is a big problem. And you were talking earlier, I think, about attracting teachers and recruiting teachers. Well, it's no wonder that fewer teachers want to go into teaching when faced with those kind of challenges. It's not surprising. So those kinds of challenges need to be mitigated by schools through policy. Partnerships and networks and sustaining success. Okay. And finally, almost finally, change leadership. I mentioned the word disruption, unlearning. I don't know about you, but things I've learned over a period of time, some of them I hold dear to me. And if somebody suggested that I would need to change them, I would find it very difficult to swallow. And teachers are the same. How do you influence teachers to change when that means creating a different sense of professional identity, a different set of purposes and practices in the classroom? Why aren't policies dealing with that problem rather than simply saying, well, it's difficult to recruit, we're not retaining, and so on and so forth? These are personal, professional problems, and they're personal, professional problems because according to a welter of research, teachers, good teachers, bring the personal to the professional. So we don't separate. Good teachers don't separate. You will all have experienced a good teacher, at least one good teacher from time to time, I'm sure. Yeah? And they're the people who will tell you a story about themselves in some way. They're the teacher who, as one young person said, the bad teachers, I can see the bubbles coming out of their mouths. They're bubbles. Whereas the good teacher can see the care that comes out of their mouths and through their actions. We have self-determination theory, you'll be glad to hear here. And it's how do you define autonomy? And is every student able to manage autonomy? What do we mean by autonomy? Is it collegial autonomy? Is it general autonomy? Is it individual autonomy? Is it freedom? It's certainly not freedom, because teachers have responsibilities, answerabilities. Competence, of course, and relatedness. Relational capital is a word we often see now in the educational research literature. So, those things, I'm not going to read through those because I have 1 minute left. But I will say or maybe 1.5. But I will say just 2 or 3 things. First of all, this is a wonderful, look at it, it's terrific. Kotter's 8-step rational change model. It's terrific, look at it. 1 to 8 with arrows, boxes, no arrows like that, not at all. The one thing that's missing from that, it's a good model, but it's rational. And teaching is not an entirely rational affair. And learning is certainly not an entirely rational affair. So what would you, if you were recreating that, I wonder how you'd recreate it. So we're going to create a futures agenda, maybe. And I'm suggesting, and research suggests to me, there are 5 foundational pillars of system change. You can see them there. Understanding it. Do leaders in schools understand how to lead change? No, not all of them, not at all. Actually, they weren't trained for that. They were trained to lead, not to lead change necessarily. Are they all good at connecting with the workforce? No, they're not. Some of them hide behind other senior staff. Are they trained for that? Competence and capability? Well, more competence, less capability maybe in the preparation. How well can they influence organizational cultures and grow change leaders? And there is some literature on change leadership. I'm just going straight to that now because of that. Am I? Yes. Change leaders as key champions in supporting career-long learning. So they identify and recognize the contribution of specialist expertise, enhance the skills and knowledge of CPD leaders. Does every school, every college have a CPD leader? Not manager, leader. Challenge local leaders to engage with new theories and approaches, and so on. And promote a dual approach to learning with attacking competence, but also believing in, through your actions, the promise of a capability agenda, the promise of the well-being agenda, the promise of the emotional understanding agenda, of self as well as others, the promise of cognitive and so on and so forth. And so enabling agile, responsive and competent learners to be able to better navigate. And leadership is about navigation, and more in our classrooms, in every country, teaching is about navigating between groups of children, young people, navigating between a heterogeneous class where people come in with different interests. And how do you navigate those? And how do you make those worthwhile and cohesive for all of them in the class? And policy making, it seems to me, is still far removed from being able to provide the solution to that. But it can provide a way of highlighting, spotlighting, as our first speaker said, spotlighting the importance of capability with those perhaps words. And in doing so, you will be adopting a futures mindset. First time I've mentioned values and moral purpose, but they lie behind everything, I think, in education, for sure. How do we prepare for the future? So what are your developing frameworks looking like? Can you imagine what they'll look like in 5 years, 10 years? What kind of your leadership is demanded? What about your thinking capabilities? What about your own development? This is part of it, of course, being involved with Cedefop here. It's only part of it. And then what's it important for learners to know, do, and be? And it's the being. You know a lot about what they know and what they do, but we know less about how they might be. And that requires a vision. And the framework has to reflect the vision. And the strategies have to reflect the framework. So there has to be perfect, and we all want to be perfect, that kind of relationship between what you do at policy level and what's done at district level and what's done at school level and what's done at department level and what's done at individual level. How do you see the future? It's important. It's important because the students ultimately will receive the wisdom or otherwise of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Many messages that we should definitely consider when analyzing also the data of the EVTS survey. I have noted several comments here about your recommendations for complementing the work done, about considering this capabilities approach, the importance of lifelong guidance, school leadership, and the fact that learning is disruptive and we should be adopting a future mindset. We have 5 minutes for any questions or comments from the audience. Agnes, please.
Thank you, Professor Day, for the interesting presentation. I noted one comment of you I don't fully agree with, so maybe you could elaborate. You said that those teachers who have high workload, they can handle it themselves. This is why they stay in the profession, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't agree with you because I think those teachers who have high workload, they stay in the profession because they feel it as a mission. They love teaching.
Yes.
And the problem is then the system, employers, parents, students, the whole system, everyone is putting even more pile of workload just because of feeling it as a mission. So how to make a right balance on workload and mission? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't think we're disagreeing at all. I think I heard you as agreeing with me, really, because you've got to take into account the school culture again and the way in which head teachers or principals, if you like, can mediate. Now, in order to mediate, seems to be a strong word. It's not by itself; it's a weak word. Because we have to think about how they can mediate. How do you mediate an argument or someone who is losing commitment, for example? Well, if you don't know them, you won't be able to do it. So what that already tells you is that school leaders at whatever level have to get to know the teachers to the extent that they know when they're becoming more committed, for example, or less committed, to the extent that they can know when emotional work becomes emotional labour. And there are various ways of doing this. And so all the time, I started, I think, by saying we can't talk about teachers. We have to talk about good or effective or successful teachers. The same would apply to principals, and that's why, or leaders of schools. And that's why I think much more emphasis on their education and training, if you like, is necessary. Frankly, you won't get very far in terms of actioning the result of the survey unless leadership of organisations is somehow involved in that survey. It's impossible, conceptually and practically, to go from policy to teachers without looking at what's happening in between. And actually, what I actually presented to you was the result of research. And that said, teachers, good teachers, effective teachers, stay in the profession regardless of workload, provided that workload is mediated by their colleagues, could be the principal of the school. So it comes back to that. So thank you for disagreeing.
Thank you. We have a question there from Costa.
I'd like to say that it's also like equally important to understand that throughout this process, we need to recognize that certain people will leave along the way. And this might be very damning of myself, but maybe that's the better option, because the people that should be in these positions should do this because they want to do it. We're not forcing people to become teachers. The survey is not meant to somehow reinvent the wheel and get people to be employed in schools. We want people that they recognize the challenges, they want to be in these positions, because when you're challenged, you excel on a personal level and the people around you. And the people around us are children who ought to be in a society where their academics want to inspire them and are inspired by the exchange of knowledge. And I just wanted to add that to what you were saying earlier.
Because you want to stay in the profession doesn't mean to say you're going to be a good teacher. We have also to take that into account. There's a phrase, teach to your best and well. It's not enough to teach to your best, right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Yes, Ulena?
Thank you very much, Professor Day, for your insights and for sharing the dilemmas also that are facing all those who are supporting teachers or trying to understand how to best design policies that would be conducive for professional development of teachers. Am I right that I perceived a little bit in a very categorical way what you were saying about the focus on capabilities rather than competencies, as the letter would be representing the instrumental approach? Do you also apply this to the key competence concepts and policies that are being consistently developed and applied within the European context? And for example, the 2018 communication of the Commission on key competences for lifelong learning, because all the other specific aspects mentioned by you, including the resilience and the critical thinking and the concept of the agency, etc., learner agency, they are the core of these policies and these concepts, and we apply them a lot in the practical terms. And I'm a bit afraid that being too restrictive, too categorical, also in terms of the use of terminology, capabilities versus competences, or continuing versus continuous, we understand where it comes from. But since we deal with many languages and many interpretations, we sometimes sound as scary organizations to practitioners and policymakers in different country contexts, which are different, as you rightly mentioned. And that we would not be very orthodox in that, in my opinion. So I would like to know your interpretation of my question. Thank you.
Thank you. No, good question. Thank you. It's because those terms are not fully defined in practice that I'm using them differently. I'm suggesting competence and capability in order to try to ensure that, to use your example, that resilience, what is resilience? Is it a capacity? Is it a skill? Can it be developed? Can you train people to be resilient? Does it, and so on and so forth. And when you say it's a core competence, if you like, as you do, then where is that kind of attention to resilience in the training, if you like, or in the provision? It's not there as a separate. I mean, in other words, we can use the words, we can believe in the words and the importance of the words we use, but I'm wondering where it is in the practices of continuing professional development, and I don't see it. And I don't see its impact. So that's the reason. That's what academics do. They kind of try to unpick things, sometimes not very well, perhaps, but certainly I'm not suggesting it's a, to use the word balance, it's an orientation towards capability as well as competence. And as I see it, in VET particularly, the orientation still towards competencies. So
Thank you. Happy to continue this discussion separately.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for the questions asked and the answers by Professor Day. He will be with us also later on to follow up the discussions. Thank you once again, Professor Day, for this inspiring keynote. Thank you. And we move on to the panel discussion.
Go.
So we reached the last session of this afternoon, and we have the panel, which is dedicated on actually what we aim also to achieve through this survey. You heard earlier on using this concept of collaborative leadership, and this panel is actually dedicated on members of our EVTS stakeholder group who have played a crucial role for shaping the group. And we have 3 topics to discuss. So on my right, I have Agnes Roman. She is the Senior Policy Coordinator in ETUCE. ETUCE is the European Trade Union Committee for Education. Hello, Agnes.
Hello.
On my left, the right left, I have Monica Hongde, a Policy and Project Manager from the European Federation of Education Employers, FEE. And on my left, we have the nominated people from Italy. I say people because we have in presence Ms. Biancolini Alessandra from the National Institute for Public Policy Analysis, INAP. In Italy, but we also have on Teams, and I hope she can hear us and she can contribute later on, Professor Claudia Angelini from the Ministry of Education, right? Yeah. Okay, right. I'm correct. So thank you very, very much for coming today and for all your contribution over the past year and more. For Agnes and Monica, it's much more than 1 year. We've been supporting. We will be saying all this. And I will first of all, I want to see your role and discuss your role in boosting collaborative leadership through shaping this EVTS stakeholder group. But I want to know, first of all, the challenges that you faced. So starting with you, Agnes. In your capacity as representative of ETUCE, you have played in naval, I don't know to find the right adjective, crucial, invaluable. It has been with us for more than 5 years since we started conceptualizing a feasibility study for the survey. At that time, we formed what we called an advisory group. Later on, this much bigger one, the stakeholder group. So I want to know what kind of challenges you face in order to convince either members of ETUCE joining us, because you played a crucial role in nominating, help us to nominate national representatives from ETUCE, but also to involve other actors to convince them about our survey. So what was the greatest challenges that you faced?
Thank you very much, Rina. I would say rather that we are like co-parents of this project, and I'm very happy that we have been working for so long on that. Yes, indeed, my organization represents, it's an umbrella organization of trade unions in the education sector, and mostly teachers, and we are represented in 51 countries, so we also have a membership of around 130 national teacher unions. And before I'm answering to your question, I really would like to highlight one thing, because Professor Day mentioned about the slow policy making. And I would like to reflect to that with a very important document which was adopted like 1 week ago, the Herning Declaration, which is a declaration of the EU ministers and EU candidate countries and social partners and the Commission, defining VET priorities for the next 5 years. And if you Google it, because it's already on the website of the Danish presidency, and you go to page 5, you can see lots of engagements of EU ministers on teachers. For example, address shortages of teachers in VET by making the profession more attractive, ensuring their professional autonomy, continue investing in initial pedagogical qualification and professional development, in supportive working conditions and environments, ensure physical and mental well-being of learners and VET teachers, equip teachers with necessary skills on AI-driven tools and immersive technologies, involve teachers in different countries on improving, implementing these objectives. So this is a very important document, and of course the request is how to shifts it to reforms, and the expectation that within 5 years everything will be already taken place, already implemented. But we need time to implement such engagement, and we need data to implement such engagement. And data we really hope that we will receive from the Cedefop survey, because we as teacher trade unions, we really need more data. We really need more data which shows how CPD of teachers can link to retention and attractiveness of the profession, because we see that there is a weak link to career progression and CPD, how to improve working conditions and salaries. And it's really, we really need to consider about how many VET teachers, specifically those who are working on professional subjects, are leaving the profession because of salary issues. They are going to industries because they get 3-4 times more salaries. It's very difficult to retain teachers. And it is also more attractive for them to go to industries because of defined working hours. And after working hours, they don't have to deal with answering to parents' emails, to correct tests, etc. So we really need to consider this from this perspective. We need also data because we are also involved with the education employers and parents and students organization in a big project on collaborative leadership. We would like to see policy developments from bottom up. We really would like to see that students, parents, teachers, school heads, policy makers are collaborating on improving the system. And I know that it is idealistic, but for us, research is very important to also improve school management and education policy management. And we have an education sectoral social dialogue with the employers, and for improving vocational training and social dialogue needs also more data. So answering concretely your question, what was our challenge? First of all, workload of policymakers and education trade unions concerning such projects. The other is a problem of understanding why this survey is different from any other international surveys. For example, from the OECD survey, OECD does not cover all EU countries, and it is expensive because the countries participate, they have to pay. Cedefop is doing for us for free. Not for free, but Cedefop has its own budget. And other EU surveys, unfortunately, has not been focusing on vocational teachers. Then there is another problem about when policymakers and practitioners hear about survey, they say, again, there is a huge survey fatigue. But this survey is way more different because we also had to understand as teacher trade unions that it's not like Cedefop is presenting us questionnaire and we can send it to teachers. It was very difficult to understand that the methodology is totally different, that you really need from some countries the signature of the ministries to allow to send surveys to teachers. And we also needed to discuss, and many times we discussed in the last 5 years, how it has an impact on the workload of VET teachers, because how many surveys they have to fill in, how many administrative tests they have. The other issue is we would like to see more cooperation at national level. So those countries who are involved in this survey to establish also their national cooperation with the relevant stakeholders. And we as ETUCE, we always repeat and always informed our member organization about the possibility to be involved and to follow up. So we are very excited about this survey, and we're looking forward to the launch and the results.
Thank you so much, Agnes. You have been an amazing ambassador of this survey, indeed, absolutely. You mentioned 3 issues: workload, understanding the added value of the survey, and the survey fatigue, which I think are exactly also the obstacles that we're going to face when we go to the field. Because it's exactly the same 3 things that we will have to deal with teachers to convince them to reply to the survey. So the main issues that you faced in convincing people nominating in this group and working with us, the same we may face for convincing them to reply. But you found an amazing way to do, because we have so many members from ETUC supporting us. So we also hope that we're going to convince teachers to answer to our survey. And with that, I would like to know, Monica, similarly, the same question from your perspective, though, in your different role from FEE. Also, you played an important role. You came a bit later, but when we really formed the EVTS stakeholder group, you helped us a lot to identify schools also for carrying out the cognitive test of the questionnaire. That's a heavy work that they have to be engaged for more than an hour with us for the cognitive testing. You helped us to find also pilot countries, and also to nominate FEE members. So what challenges you also faced?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. Just fair warning, I woke up at 4 a.m., so if I said something a bit awkward, please let me know. Thank you very much, Irena, for this question. Also, greetings to my fellow panelists, of course. Brief introduction about the European Federation of Education Employers. We are indeed a recognized sectoral social partner in education, encompassing 54 member organizations across 23 member states, and we are indeed engaging in social dialogue with ETUCE. Now, I must say that we've been delighted with how process have been done and the communication that gone through and what sort of information we've been spreading. And I must say, it's been such a passionate process, because the moment we launched the ball, let's say, everyone was like, yes, sure, I'll do this. I'll help you. I know this person. We'll go there. So I must say, at the beginning and until now, and I hope for the next couple of months, years, the enthusiasm was great. And at the first glance, like, okay, what challenges? To be honest, very practical. And I think, as Agnes already mentioned, one of them was similar to the ones that I encountered among employer organizations, was indeed the resources and capacity in terms of human resources, financial resources, also future perspectives, right? So what are the priorities that we would like to focus on? Alignment with the mission and vision of the organization. Do we really want to, let's say, put our eggs here in this basket? So that was one of the main challenges, I would say, that I've encountered, but also those systemic ones, as simple as it may sound, in the sense of, like, I don't know, changes of people responsible, changes of contact points, political changes on the level of ministries of education in various countries. And, we managed to convince majority of our network, and those few that we didn't was mainly because of that reason. I've been told I have 3 minutes, so I hope I managed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. And you also give me the ground to say that indeed these political changes, and as Agnes said before, yes, to go, you will learn more about it tomorrow, but to go to the schools, we had to take, in the majority of cases, the endorsement from the ministries. And then we had kind of political changes and new ministries, and we got the endorsement, but then we had to approach the new government. And of course, it took us time. It's very challenging. But thank you so much, Monica, to have this formal opportunity to thank you for all the work that you have done with us. And now, it's not by chance. It's not that my head of department is Italian and I thought, okay, to please him, let's now invite Italy to be part of this panel and not invite anyone from the other 23 countries, that actually some of them, they will have the chance tomorrow. So there is a reason. There is a reason because Italy is one of the 23 participating countries in the EVTS, and Italy has a multi-actor governance in initial education and training, and a multi-actor, I would say, so multi-level and multi-actor. And from Italy, to be able to proceed with the survey, we had to take the endorsement letter from the Ministry of Education, but also we had to involve the Ministry of Labour Market and Deployment, And also the ministries, I understand, they had to involve regional authorities. So, Alessandra, before I give you the floor, do you allow me to give the floor to Professor Angelini?
Of course, yes.
Herself, so
of course,
that
yes.
she's also present with us.
The Ministry of Education first.
Thank you. Okay. So, I don't know if Professor Angelini, you can hear us and you would like to introduce yourself?
Yes.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Yes, good afternoon. Allow me to introduce myself. Okay, I'm Claudia Angelini. I'm a school principal, currently serving at the Directorate General for Technical and Vocational Education and Training and Higher Technical Education at the Italian Ministry of Education and Merit. And since September the 1st, I have taken over from my colleague Maria Antonietta Biagioli, who on behalf of the ministry participated in the initial meetings of the EVTS stakeholders group. And over the past few days, I have had the opportunity to deepen my understanding of the topic, thanks to the availability and the materials provided by Alessandra Biancolini, who is present in the room among the speakers. The Ministry of Education and Merit, and specifically the Directorate General for TVET, is involved in the study as the responsible entity for the ISCD 354 level, which refers to technical and vocational education and training schools, and the teachers to whom the study is addressed. The ministry, recognizing the central role of teachers in vocational and technical education, fully supported the participation of schools and teachers in this survey on teachers in vocational education and training, with the signing of the endorsement letter dated January 29, 2025. While promoting it among the communities of VET teachers, educators, and trainings. So personally, as a member of the Italian support group, I am promptly available to collaborate on the implementation of this survey at the national level. So I will now hand over the floor to Alessandra Biancolini for her speech, and we remain connected to listen. And thank you so much. Bye. See you.
Thank you very much, Professor Angelini. Please stay with us, because at the end of the panel there must be some time for questions, so maybe you will wish to answer some question related perhaps to Italy and complement Ms. Biancolini. So, Alessandra, Italia was a very, very nice surprise for us. We knew all these complexities, and somehow for us things worked very smoothly in our side. So we want to know what kind of difficulties, because I'm sure you did, some barriers, some difficulties that you faced to engage all these stakeholders. But also I wish that you spent also some time to reflect whether this procedure also brought some benefits at national level to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Rena, and thank you to the Cedefop team for inviting us to share our inputs from our country perspective. Yes, but we are being elected like so far the best practice, but we are only at the beginning, so we will see. Yes, the benefits we have tried to identify are very strictly related to our country experience. As you previously said, we have a very complex governance in the education and vocational training, especially in the initial VET, because following a constitutional reform now dated 25 years ago, because the reform law was in 2001, some topics are currently under the exclusive competency of the state, while others are concurrent competency between the state and the regions. Among these, also the vocational education and training. So, more in details, while the school system is under the competency of the state, represented by the Ministry of Education and Merit, leading to a quite harmonized paths in all the country, even though the school, they gain their organizational autonomy, of course. The vocational education and training, especially in the IVET, that covers a very delicate age group in compulsory education or very young people that need to cover the so-called right duty of education and training in our country that is set at the age of 18. So the vocational education and training, in this part, the state maintained the definition of training standard, training minimum standards, while the training offer is offered at territorial level, at regional level. So the regions have the responsibility to implement the path at their level, and they also have to manage all the overall issues concerning the training providers, including, for example, the recruitment of teachers and trainers, whose status, as you may probably imagine, is completely different from the career of a school teacher or a school leader. So given this context, as said, there is a multi-level but also a multi-actor governance in the IVET that need to assure coordination and need to provide the merging of national standards and regional competencies. The system is quite integrated, but it responds to different settings, but also different logic, because in one case, the national authorities have other constraints than the regional ones. For example, the logic behind is made quite clear when it comes to consult databases of teachers and trainers that exist in my country only on the side of education at national level, so nationwide level, but are managed at regional level and not available in all the regions so far. So, on the one side, for respecting the constitutional norms, but also with the aim of conducting an effective survey and representative ones, we decided, through my colleague of the Ministry of Education and also other policy actors in our ministries, to set up a support team. We asked as the Ministry of Labour and Social Policies to the so-called Coordinamento delle Regioni, which is our unique interlocutor with the 20 regions of my country, to indicate 2 members and appoint them for to be represented within this survey from the launching till the data collecting and also impacts on policy making. This is like a steering committee, but the accent is put on support rather than representation. So this group has been set with the idea of providing support, guidance to the ministries in reaching the target and the goals of the survey, rather than to verify the respect of the complex design between the state and the regions in this specific issue. And the support team was set during the beginning of the year, 2025. We already met once in May, and we will meet again probably after the conclusion of this policy learning forum to share the evidence of these 2 days and also to announce the launch of the survey.
Great. So, Alessandra, if I understood well, I mean, it brought somehow the 2 ministries more close together and also with the regional actors. But what is really, I think, striking is that our methodology, which is to try to build a sampling strategy to make it representative, mobilized you to create this working team for identifying and accessing the teachers' registries. So it mobilized, it's very interesting, really, really interesting. And I see it brought some benefits at national level. And I hope it will bring benefits to more countries too. Yeah. Thank you so much. So going now back to Monica. You told us about the challenges that you faced in helping us also nominate members in this group. We also want to know whether you gain any benefits as a FEE participating in this multi-stakeholder group.
Yes, that's a short answer. For us, glasses always half full. So in my view, there are multiple benefits that we gained. And coming back to my first answer, when we started the process and we started reaching out, and I could see those dots connecting, people were really fostering this mutual trust to each other, like thinking like, how can I move heaven and hell, we say in Polish, to make this work. So I would say definitely this fostering of mutual trust, confidence in each other, but also transparent communication among stakeholders. So to be very clear what we want, what our objective is. People usually unite for two objectives, when they have the common vision and then when they have the same enemy. For us, it was obvious it's the first case. And of course, it supported also this, what Agnes previously mentioned, this collaborative leadership, the common understanding, the mutual visioning of the same word, in fact. So definitely this. Additional benefits that probably is a little bit, in a sense, mid and long term, will be the data collected, the evidence-informed policy making that will serve all of us in this room and beyond that room, going further than Thessaloniki, Greece, and to other countries as well. Because we need data, we need definitely more data-informed policy making. And I would say two last things, perhaps. Are first of all this co-designing in a sense of solutions and how we can provide certain ideas to make this happen. And this co-designing process, coming back again, I think I cannot stress this enough, collaboration and ownership of things. And combining this, it goes to collective ownership when everyone plays a role. We're like a body. We need a left hand, right hand, heart, brain to function together. So that's, I would say, among the benefits. Just to repeat myself and to make sure that my message comes across, mutual trust and transparent communication, boosting collaborative school, not only school leadership, and evidence-informed policymaking going alongside the collective ownership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. It's really this co-designing that engages people, and this is what we want to do with the survey, that they feel that they are part of the policy-making process, the teachers themselves. And you made me remember that when we had our first EVTS stakeholder group, all of them came, like we had 100 members, and we thought, okay, it's the first one, people are curious, they want to come, they want to listen, what is the survey about, and so forth. A few months later, when we had the second EVTS stakeholder group, it's all online, I saw the participant list online and I was shocked. And I remember my team says, what happened? I said, they are all here. They said, yeah, what do you expect? No. I said, they are all again here. It was like, so they came back and they were so engaged and so active. And on the third meeting, the same. So this co-designing, I think it played a role.
Yeah, if I may briefly, Rena, just on this one, I had the same reaction. So the moment people were really staying in the same online meeting, and the number wouldn't drop, I was like, okay, that's the really same purpose that we are striving for. Thank you.
Great. So, Alessandra, back to you. You mentioned, we discussed the national benefits. Did you see also other benefits being part of this EVTS stakeholder group?
Yes, as you said, for us it's a mission. It's not only a task. Because, no, I'm joking. Yes, the implementation of this survey in countries like Italy, like mine, with such a complex governance in the initial VET is really challenging. So for political issues, but also for technical reasons, I mentioned the databases that doesn't exist in the 20 regions for recruiting the VET teachers. So we have a lack of data, for example, or we have a lack of a unique source of information. So the idea of missing the goal, so not reaching the right person and affecting so that the results of the survey suggested us this solution of the supporter group, but we have announced our decision, our suggestion, our intention to set up this group, and we have had positive impact from your side. So we are very happy to be in the stakeholder group because we can share not only strategic issues and perspective for the futures, but also interesting point of view in managing and adapting at country level this survey that need to be effective and not only announce it.
I do remember, Alessandra, when you announced, you suggested, but you actually announced that this is the way that you are thinking to go forward in order to give us what we need and so forth. You really inspired more countries, because I got in my chat, oh, maybe we can do the same, maybe we can set up such a working group and so forth. So indeed, this peer learning was a very, very interesting exercise. Agnes, I missed you. I haven't talked to you for a while, and I'm sorry I gave you half of my bag. That was not intentionally, but I will make sure that I will recover this. I have a kind of different question for you. Now that we are really approaching EVTS going at the field, what advice do you have for other leaders on ensuring that the EVTS finding can eventually influence meaningful policy actions? So we want to hear your advices for actually how they can benefit the teachers and schools, okay, from this perspective.
Of course, thank you. I really know that there's such an excitement about the survey, and we don't even know the data at the end. And I really would like just to add that from our side, from the teacher trade union side, there is also very huge excitement, because even the piloting one, which only covered 5 countries, there were countries from our side represented who are not even in the because they were interested, and Joaquim is here from Portugal, who will speak tomorrow. For example, he was continuously following the piloting phase, while Portugal was not even piloted. And I saw also in our meetings, previous meetings, for example, Norwegian teacher trade union joined, which is not even covered. Or we organized an online event on Monday, and now the UK teacher unions are super excited to learn about the outcomes. So there is a big buzz around, and I really would like to see that this Cedefop survey and study at the end would be seen as same value as, for example, the OECD TALIS. You know, everyone has been waiting for it for years, and already everyone knows when it will be published. And we really would like to see that the data which comes up from the survey is really used to improve the VET system. It's really used for social dialogue, for example, for discussion, for stakeholders discussion. And hopefully some other big countries who also have this very difficult governance structure, like Spain, France, Germany, they would also join, because these big countries actually at the moment we are missing from the survey. It only covers 23 countries at the moment, and this is really pity, because Germany, one of the best VAT systems in Europe. But it's a first step. But why we are really excited to see the data, and why we are really motivating already teacher unions to look into this survey development and this project, is to be prepared already. To be prepared, like, for example, in Italy, you will set up national collaboration. We would like to see national collaboration also with the relevant stakeholders, with teacher unions, with parents, students, to be already ready for the findings, to already know what to do afterwards. Because you promised me, Rena, that after the comparative survey, you will also have national focus. And this is what all members are expected to see, to get into the national data and to collaborate among policymakers and practitioners to see what does it mean for the VET system in that country, how to improve the VET system together, what to do together. And for example, it could be interesting to follow it up like with peer learning activities, to be invited by one country and other country representatives, also stakeholders could learn. So we have really lots of expectation from the outcomes, and 2027 is really far away still. So.
Thank you, Agnes. You will see that I keep my promises. And tomorrow, you're going to learn all about our campaign and how actually not only the campaign now to reach the teachers, but the campaign for disseminating our findings. So Nicholas and Kostas tomorrow, they will present you in depth everything that we plan to do once we have the findings. But I will also keep my promise about missed you for a while, and I will continue asking you. Okay. So I want you, bearing in mind everything that we discussed today about the challenges that teachers face, what the EU tries to do to support them, and what member states are doing, we wish to know, will the recently formulated EU teachers agenda effectively address all these challenges that we discussed today? And if not, what more is there to be done? But to make it more difficult for you, I will continue asking you, can the EVTS then findings further influence this agenda towards a direction of improving the teachers' CPD and working conditions?
Okay, so it's a difficult question from two reasons, because I am still excited about the Herning Declaration. Okay. We were consulted on that, and it's very strong on teachers, not fully. I mean, salaries and some other issues are missing, but it's a very good basis to work on. The EU Teachers Agenda was announced in the Union of Skills Initiative on the 5th of March by the European Commission. And actually, the preparation is just starting now by the Commission. So it will be published in 2026. And obviously, we as teacher unions, we have huge expectations from the teacher agenda. First of all, we have one critical voice on that. We don't want that it is an EU teachers and trainers agenda. And from very simple reason. We understand from the Commission that the EU teacher agenda will focus on early childhood, vocational education teachers, general education teachers, and not on higher education. The very simple reason is that, like a year ago, there was already a Council recommendation on academic career framework, so higher education professionals are covered, but it will focus on many other education sectors. And these teachers are, there is qualification requirements, these are regulated professions. They are mostly public servants. And the trainers, the VET trainers, is a very complicated group of professions. They can be working in a workshop in a school, but they can be simply a worker in a company whom was asked by the boss that you will teach now on car mechanics or motors issues, this apprentice, without qualification, without any preparation. So we really think that VET trainers is an important topic to deal with, and they need support, but in different kind of recommendations. So, but besides of that, what we expect from the EU Teachers Agenda, that it would deal with challenging issues. It would really recommend to countries to solve the issue of job attractiveness concerning the VET teachers on decent salary, stable contracts, manageable workload, how to embed CPD to paid time, because in many countries, many teachers, the CPD is own responsibility, and this is not fair. It's not fair that private sector industries, the trade unions, we demand employee training in working hours. But for public sector, nurses, doctors, teachers, in many countries, it is on your shoulder. You have to pay your own professional development outside of working hours, during weekends. Why? Why we cannot see an equal treatment of public and private sector workers? And what about work-life balance? So all of these issues, we really hope that the EU Teachers Agenda will include, but also, of course, social dialogue and strong cooperation with teacher unions on improving teachers' working conditions, also in relation to CPD. And why we think this Cedefop study will be important, and the data is that it can contribute to support to set up national targets, for example, on CPD allocation, on staffing, and to support social dialogue, or to set up quality indicators to countries. And the other issue is the qualification of vet teachers, because we really have to support that professional, skilled workers could have access to be vet teachers with relevant qualifications and pedagogical training, and to make for these professionals the vet teachers profession attractive, because at the moment no one, really very few people want to do living engineering to be a vet teacher, because the salary is low, working conditions are heavy, workload is heavy, and according to a recent European Commission survey and study, these people leave the profession, going back to the original profession. So there are lots of things we have to consider here, and this is why we are very excited that this survey may be the first step to have real changes in systems.
Wow, thank you, Agnes. Thank you. You stressed me. The expectations are really high. You see 2027 far. I see 2027 tomorrow. But we will do our best. And thank you so, so much. Monica, as I see 2027 tomorrow, yes, thank you. Because with the workload that we have, we just wake up, it is 2027, right? Okay, so let's imagine then that now is 2027 and we have finally reached and we have our findings. Tell us, how could FEE help us to translate these EVTS insights into some actions that can actually improve school leadership. And why to improve school leadership? I think we heard a lot today about the role and how school leaders can really then impact on the teachers' well-being, on their professional development, and so forth. So please, tell us.
Thank you, Rena. And I see that we are on the same time perception line. Indeed, always start with why, right? Once somebody said, I think it's very straightforward, because we believe in power of those insights. We believe in the quality and solid data, information that will give us concrete incentives to translate, as you said, those information into actions to improve school leadership, but also for education employers to carry on facilitating teachers' CPD, supporting teachers in their well-being and working conditions. Now, we started with why. I'll carry on now with what and how. So moving on to macro and micro level. Very concretely, what do we do? I mean, I think someone mentioned earlier that there was, teachers burnout, violence against teachers. So that's exactly the actions we are taking also on the European multi-sectoral level, but also on the social dialogue level with ETUCE. We developed joint multi-sectoral guidelines against third-party violence and harassment with other sectors. We are about to launch joint psychosocial risks guidelines from the project that we've just concluded. FE-only capacity building projects, we've developed recommendations about importance of initial teacher education and training, so induction programs, but also agreements. We're in the process of negotiating an agreement now on telework and right to disconnect. So that's the concrete steps we are taking. But of course, in our daily work, we also create this common understanding and foster the language between system leaders about importance and relevance of CPD. Moreover, through our projects, we share good practices, we share success stories, and we talk about that. We want to make sure that there is awareness and that we have this amplifier and, if you want, waterfall effect in terms of also policy making and project activities. Moving on to how, as I mentioned, projects, peer learning activities, workshops, we attend and we also organize them. And we also warmly invite you to have a look and to see how we could also engage together, because I see so many different stakeholders in the room. We also do members consultation, and I see many of our members here, so I'm very pleased to have you here as well. But also policy efforts through opinions, reactions, and statements that we are doing. So I would say translating those insights into concrete actions. In a way, we are already doing this, obviously not with EVTS because the results are not yet there. But since you mentioned, imagine we're in 27, that's how I would see it. Thank you very much, Rena. Back to you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Actually, so what we're going to hear tomorrow about how we plan to disseminate our findings, you know that again is going to be a co-design actually of how we will reach countries. And all the ideas that you brought, they are excellent. And then Italy and any other country can also tell us what do we need to do to reach the utmost of even the same teachers who answer the survey, to have the feedback of their input and so forth. And with this, it's already the time to finish this first day. However, if there is a very, very urgent question about this panel, if there is on Teams any question that requires an answer and cannot wait until tomorrow, otherwise, I will close the day for today. I will announce a very early dinner for the Greek standards. That's the earliest I will ever have dinner in my life. But as I didn't have lunch, and Italian, as I didn't have lunch, is very welcome. And I wish to invite all those online to also eat, to eat whatever, so that we feel we are all together celebrating the launch of the European Vocational Teacher Survey, the launch of a brighter future, some ambition for reaching out to our teachers. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to all of you who kept silent. So please, during dinner, speak. Speak so that I have the possibility to eat. Don't eat first, okay? So thank you so, so much. Enjoy your evening.